What are you doing? The ceremony has started.
Emily's wedding. Even though he was the bride's father, Scott didn't show up at the promised time. He wasn't at home either. Worried that he might have gotten into an accident, I kept calling him. And after the ceremony had started, I finally got through to him. Hearing Scott's voice, I reflexively raised mine.
I got caught up in some urgent work,
Scott said with a laugh. His voice, unlike mine, didn't sound rushed. I was dumbfounded, hearing an unbelievable voice on the other end of the phone. On such an important day, I couldn't forgive Scott for doing this. Then, someone who wanted to talk to Scott appeared. I gently handed my smartphone over to that person. Little did I know, this call would be the beginning of Scott's downfall. My name is Madeline Turner. I'm a housewife who just turned 60. Even though I say housewife, I was working as an office worker at a company until just the other day. I had just retired and was looking forward to being a full-time housewife. My husband is Scott Turner, 2 years younger than me. We work at different companies, but Scott is still working. We met in high school. Scott joined the track and field club I was part of at the time. I'm Scott. Nice to meet you. Scott's first impression, with his energetic greeting, wasn't bad at all. He took practice seriously and was hardworking. Raised by a single mother, Scott was polite and very responsible. But no matter how wonderful a person he was, to me, Scott was just a friend. However, Scott seemed to have taken a liking to me for some reason. He confessed his feelings, and I turned him down at the time, but we met again years later. After seeing you again after such a long time, I just knew I could be happy with you, Madeline. I just have to be with you, no one else will. I want to date you with the intention of getting married. That's how he confessed to me again. Moved by his long-standing affection, we started dating. Scott was incredibly kind, and I spent very happy days with him. When we started dating, we were both working as professionals, so we couldn't find much time to relax. Despite our busy schedules, Scott always made time to contact me, and he used all his leave for me. When he proposed, he had prepared my favorite flowers and booked the top-floor room of a hotel. I can be the happiest with Madeline. I truly felt the same about the words Scott once told me, and I accepted his proposal at the height of my happiness. After getting married, we were soon blessed with a child, a boy whom we named Sean. After Sean's birth, I returned to work 3 months postpartum. However, maybe I overdid it, as I fell ill. Still, I managed to juggle work and childcare, and a few years later, I was pregnant with our second child. I was happy, but it was certainly not easy to balance poor health, pregnancy, and life in general. So, one day, as my delivery approached, I talked to Scott about it. Scott, I'm thinking of quitting my job. I thought Scott would accept my proposal. However, upon hearing my words, Scott frowned.
What? Quit? I'll talk to Mom about it.
Okay. I was disappointed that Scott didn't decide right away, but my mother-in-law helped with childcare daily, like dropping off and picking up from daycare. She was a wonderful mother-in-law to me, so I nodded at Scott's suggestion and went to consult with her. Huh?
Quit your job?
What are you thinking, Madeline? Child rearing costs money. I won't allow you to quit. However, my mother-in-law's words shattered my hopes. But her words made me clench my fists. But noticing my distress, Scott gently placed his hand on my shoulder.
If Mom says so, let's give it our all, okay? Madeline, you can do it.
Leave Sean and the baby to me, and both you, Madeline, and Scott need to earn a solid income. Don't try to take the easy way out using the kids as an excuse. I bit my lip hard. I'm not trying to take it easy, not one bit. Plus, my mother-in-law must know I've been feeling under the weather. I looked desperately at Scott, but he just shifted his gaze away from me. It was a shock. Later, back at home, as I was feeling down, Scott tried to talk to me. You understand what Mom's saying, right? I get it, but I wish I hadn't brought it up if this was gonna happen.
We're a family, we have to talk about these things. Let's just keep at it, okay?
In the end, Scott never really took my side, always just saying we should keep at it. Thinking back, Scott always used to say I'll talk to Mom whenever something came up. I was foolish not to realize sooner that we were being manipulated by his mother without knowing it.
I won't be a burden to your mom. We have savings, and we can cut back. We can make it on just your salary, Scott, so I'm gonna quit my job.
It was a bit of rebellion against my mother-in-law, but I declared it to Scott. Then Scott started to get really angry, as if a fire had been lit.
I've been saying we should keep at it, right? Mom said not to run away from our responsibilities to the kids. She's never wrong. That's not true. Just because someone's human doesn't mean they're always right. But I've been kind to you because Mom said I should be kind to my wife. You've been happy because of it, right?
I swallowed my words. I couldn't understand his words. Wait, what are you talking about? I started to say, but then stopped. I realized then. Scott was just a puppet, manipulated by his mother's wishes. If his kindness was only because his mother told him to, it was a horrible thought. Everything that had been a beautiful memory could turn sour, but I had to ask.
Did you say you loved me because... Mom said you'd be a good wife. She liked you when she came to see the track meet in high school. So, I came to love you too. Mom's never wrong.
It was both shocking and disappointing. That Scott's affection for me was sparked by his mother's words. But the fact that Scott grew to love me and we built a happy family was true. Believing that listening to Scott, who listens to his mother, would keep us happy, I decided not to quit my job for now and chose to continue working while raising our kids. Sure enough, it was tough. I must have made the kids endure a lot. Yet, we never struggled with money, and once a year, we'd go on a family vacation and have a great time. I was a bit frustrated that the destination was always decided by my mother-in-law, but seeing the kids' happy faces made it all worthwhile, and it was something I looked forward to. It gave me the strength to keep going, no matter how hard things got. But as the kids got a bit older, Scott said,
I think having 3 kids would be nice. Mom says so too.
Huh? I was taken aback. Scott was kind, sure, but he never lifted a finger to help with housework or childcare. We were both working. When I suggested sharing the household chores, he'd say, men aren't supposed to do that sort of thing. Plus, my mom helps out with my share, right? She does the daycare drop-off and picks up, and she helps when you're not feeling well, with a kind of dismissive tone. Again, I half-heartedly asked,
Did your mom say you, being a man, don't have to do anything? Yeah, but that's just how it should be, right?
Scott answered without a hint of shame. It's one thing for Scott not to find it odd, but his mother too. She wants the best for her son and to give advice, but Scott is an adult. I think she should keep out of it.
I've been thinking, isn't it pathetic to always be doing exactly what your mom says?
I blurted out to Scott.
But, following my mom's advice has made me happy.
There was no point in arguing with Scott. Even when I wanted to have a discussion as a couple, it always somehow involved his mother indirectly. Every time Scott mentioned Mom for advice, I was about to burst with frustration. So, one day, I decided to confront his mother directly.
Please don't tell Scott what to do all the time.
My mother-in-law looked surprised.
What do you mean? I just want Scott to be happy. You give your kids advice and instructions too, right? My kids are still too young. They don't know what's right, so I advise them to help them make their own decisions. But Scott is an adult. He can't make his own decisions because he always thinks what you say is right.
My mother-in-law frowned unhappily at my words.
What? Are you saying this is my fault? That's not what I'm saying. I just wish you'd give Scott a chance to think for himself. If things continue this way, with him just doing whatever you say, it's not good for anyone. So, you're saying it's not my fault?
In the end, my mother-in-law remained stubborn, no matter what I said. When communication fails this badly, I even start to get fed up. And so, I left my in-laws' house without having made her understand. A few days later, Scott became noticeably distant towards me. The cause had to be my mother-in-law. She must have said something. Knowing this made me refrain from saying anything. I just carried on as usual. Years passed. The kids grew up and left home. Since my confrontation with my mother-in-law, Scott stopped using the word mom so much. I suspect she might have told him not to use because mom said as a reason, and he's been adhering to that.
It's suddenly so lonely now that it's just the two of us,
I said to Scott one day.
Don't be selfish. Mom's been living alone all this time. She's getting older, and we need to do something for her.
Yeah, I guess, Scott said, looking away as if he felt guilty about mentioning his mom. Indeed, I had been thinking about Scott's words for a while. Despite everything, my mother-in-law had helped with the grandchildren and I was grateful. I had been considering the possibility of living together. Then, one day, Emily called. She was getting married. The unexpected news made me very happy, and I immediately shared it with my mother-in-law and Scott. However, their expressions were not as cheerful.
Getting married, just like that? Without even discussing it with us?
Scott said the first thing upon hearing the news.
Deciding something so important on her own. Who is this person?
My mother-in-law's reaction was the opposite of happy. I muttered apologetically in response to their reactions.
I heard she met someone through work. He seems very kind, and Emily looks so happy with him.
I hadn't met the person myself. My knowledge was based on what Emily had told me and the happy pictures I saw of them on social media. But still, this was the life partner our child had chosen. I felt uncomfortable with Scott and my mother-in-law's negativity from the start.
How can you be so happy about this when you haven't even met him? You know, Emily has always been one to make her own decisions. College, even getting her job was all her own doing.
And so, they started to complain. I interrupted their rant to break the tension.
Anyway, it's Emily's decision. I haven't met him, true, but Emily chose him. I believe she's not mistaken. You could at least trust Emily a little.
Scott laughed off my words as if they were foolish.
Trust? She's still in her 20s, hardly different from a child. Letting such a child make a lifetime decision is madness.
It was clear that arguing would get us nowhere. Despite feeling annoyed by his words, I ended the conversation with anyway, just meet him, please. And so, we had a meeting with Emily's boyfriend, John. Honestly, I thought it was none of my mother-in-law's business, but Scott invited her. Nice to meet you. I'm John. John greeted us, slightly nervous, just like Scott back in the day. To me, he seemed just as good a young man as I had imagined. My mother-in-law and Scott asked him various questions and even showed smiles at times, which relieved me. I thought they had a good impression of John. However, after he left, they started mocking him.
Choosing someone like that, Emily's lost her mind. Really, deciding all on her own. Unbelievable. She must be getting deceived. That smile was so fake. To be fooled by someone like that, Emily is still just a child.
Their blatant hypocrisy made me feel dizzy. They were all smiles in front of him, but turned their backs the moment he left. The duplicity was appalling. My mother-in-law and Scott didn't just talk behind their backs, they went directly to Emily, advising her to reconsider the marriage.
It's terrible. They put on a good face when John came over, but then to oppose it.
Naturally, Emily was rebellious and outraged.
Mom will try to convince Dad and Grandma. I'm sure they'll understand.
I became Emily's ally and tried to soothe her. In the end, my mother-in-law and Scott continued to oppose each other until the end.
It's so unfair to Emily. John seems like such a nice guy, a wonderful person. Never mind whether he's wonderful. I can't believe that she didn't consult us at all.
I tried to persuade them repeatedly, but Scott was stuck on that point. It seemed like a childish excuse, but it had deep roots, and he even refused to participate in the meeting between the families. John must have thought he was accepted when he came over, but he was puzzled by Scott and my mother-in-law's attitude afterward.
I guess Emily's father is just sad about giving away his daughter.
John's mother tried to excuse Scott's absence at the meetup. She must think it's ridiculous, but she seemed to pity me. I thanked her for her concern.
If she wants to get married, then go ahead. I won't help.
Scott eventually gave his consent in such a manner. It was infuriating, but I didn't say anything. John is working hard, and so is Emily. I figured they wouldn't need to ask us for help. Hopefully, as Scott interacts more with John, he'll see his good qualities. I decided to encourage Emily to proceed with the marriage plans.
I wonder if Dad and Grandma will come to the wedding.
Emily, worried about their lack of enthusiasm, sounded disheartened.
It'll be okay. They're adults.
I reassured her. Despite my own worries, my mother-in-law was consulting me about which dress to wear, and Scott had taken the day off for the outfit fitting. Despite what they say, they must be wishing for Emily's happiness. And so, we finished the preparations smoothly and the wedding day arrived. I had to leave the house before Scott because of the dressing.
10 a.m. Make sure you're there by then. Don't be late.
I got it. Scott replied to my call without even glancing away from the TV. And then, it was 10 o'clock. The staff from the venue came to me after I had finished getting dressed.
Scott hasn't arrived yet.
What? I'll call him right away. Despite my warning him not to be late. With that thought, I immediately tried to contact Scott. However, he didn't answer the phone. After several attempts, the ringtone just kept echoing emptily. Initially, I was angry, but gradually I became anxious. And then, I started worrying he might have been in an accident.
Mom, what's wrong?
That's when my son, Sean, approached me.
Dad hasn't shown up. What? Have you got in touch with him?
No, he's not answering his phone. It seems like he hasn't seen my messages either. Sean patted my shoulder, trying to calm me down.
I'll go check at home. Just stay calm.
If he had gone back home, it would be cutting it close to the ceremony time. I couldn't leave. Sean's offer was truly a relief.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks to him, I was able to regain my composure. Every few minutes, I continued trying to call Scott. But still, only the ringtone went on. Then, I got a message from Sean.
Dad's not at home. The house is locked. Then maybe he's on his way now. Thank you.
I told Sean to come back to the venue and waited for Scott. But Scott never showed up at the venue. Sean had returned, yet Scott was still not here.
By the way, where's Grandma?
Sean asked me upon returning to the venue. I was so preoccupied with Scott's absence that I hadn't even realized my mother-in-law was also missing.
Oh no!
A bad feeling crossed my mind. Were they planning to boycott the wedding together? In the end, the ceremony started without the two of them. I was standing by the entrance with Emily, ready to walk in. Originally, Scott was supposed to walk Emily down the aisle, but in his absence, it fell to me. John made his entrance, followed by Emily and me. During that waiting time, I decided to call Scott one last time. And finally, Scott answered.
Yes? What are you doing? The ceremony has started.
I blurted out upon hearing Scott's voice. I got caught up in some emergency work, Scott said with a laugh. His voice, unlike mine, didn't sound rushed at all. I was flabbergasted, hearing an unbelievable voice on the other end. Scott. Look, the train's coming. It was unmistakably my mother-in-law's voice. I was stunned. Come to think of it, there was a lot of noise in the background. They were planning to take the train together.
All right.
I muttered in disbelief. The emergency work was obviously a big lie. But I didn't feel like saying anything more.
Sorry about that. Enjoy the wedding.
Scott's cheerful voice left me speechless. So, I decided to just hang up without responding. After the ceremony ended and during the preparation for the reception, John's mother asked me,
"Where is Emily's father?"
He was supposed to attend. Yet, only I was present during the ceremony, which must have raised her concerns. I answered honestly. I couldn't deceive her with lies and excuses, especially when she had been so kind.
"Actually, it seems he went out with my mother-in-law." "What do you mean?"
John's mother asked, tilting her head, clearly puzzled by my words. Anyone would be. It's unthinkable for the biological father to go out with his mother instead of attending his own daughter's wedding. I found myself relaxing in the kindness of John's mother. Almost to the point of tears because of the situation and my disappointment in Scott. She listened, nodding sympathetically throughout. Then, John's father appeared.
"Is it possible to speak with Emily's father now?"
"What?"
"Maybe over the phone or something."
I looked at John's mother, who nodded. I took out my smartphone and began dialing Scott, then handed the phone to John's father. After a few rings, Scott answered nonchalantly. "Hello? What's up?" "I told you I'm at work, didn't I?" Scott said. John's father had put the call on speaker, so everyone could hear the conversation. He cleared his throat and then spoke into the phone. "Hello, this is John's father."
"John, the guy marrying Emily."
"I'm sorry. Some urgent work came up." Without sensing the mood at all, Scott greeted cheerfully.
"So, that's the situation. Please go ahead and finish up the wedding without me."
John's father calmly responded to Scott's words.
"Work? Was there some urgent work for you?"
"What?
It's rude to say that when you haven't even met me. I hold an important position at the company, you know. If you think I'm lying, you can ask my wife, Madeline. It's not uncommon for me to be called out on holidays,"
Scott said, revealing his anger. Indeed, there have been times when Scott was suddenly called away for work. Even if I thought it was a lie, those words were true. However, there was one person who saw through the lie. That was John's father.
"The reason we haven't met is because you didn't show up for the meetup or here, right?"
"Well,
besides, our company forbids working on holidays, so where exactly do you work?"
I looked up at those words.
"Huh?"
Scott was taken aback and stammered in surprise.
"Sorry to say this, but I've been keeping quiet because I didn't want to create a hierarchy here, but my husband is the executive director of the company where Emily's father works."
Those words seemed to reach Scott clearly.
"The executive director?"
Scott said with a nervous tone.
"This is..." "Excuses are unnecessary. It's your right to act as you please. But do you understand the trouble and sadness Emily and her mother are going through because of it?"
"Well, that..." Scott fumbled, unable to form a proper response. The panic in his voice was palpable even through the phone. Using work as an excuse to neglect your family is inexcusable, especially when that work was a lie. A person like that is not worthy of trust either for the company or personally. "Think about that," John's father said before hanging up and handing me the phone. I stood up quickly, took the smartphone, and said,
"You were my husband's superior. I apologize for not knowing and causing disrespect."
However, John's father smiled and said,
"Please, no apologies. My wife just asked me to help Emily's mother."
"What?" John's mother smiled gently.
"Actually, I had asked Emily a little about her father and grandmother. Emily always seemed worried about her mother, and I wanted to help. Sorry if it was too much."
It appears she had heard about Scott's behavior and work from Emily beforehand. That's why she comforted me without saying much about Scott not showing up for the meetup. I expressed my gratitude.
"Thank you so much. And I'm sorry for the trouble."
"Please, don't apologize. It's a wedding celebration after all." Thanks to John's parents, I was finally able to smile. "The reception is about to start, let's head there." Following her words, a staff member guided us to our seats, and the reception began. Throughout the reception, my phone kept ringing non-stop. It must be a frantic Scott calling, but I didn't have the time to deal with him. I wanted to take pictures with my phone, so I temporarily blocked Scott's calls.
Congratulations, Emily!
Watching my beautiful daughter, I could truly enjoy the reception with a genuine smile. After the reception, when I unblocked Scott's calls, my phone rang immediately. He must have been trying to call the whole time I had blocked him. Hello? I answered.
What are you thinking? Answer your phone quicker. It was during the reception.
So, what is it? Until a few hours ago, I was filled with disdain and anger towards Scott, but thanks to John's parents and the wonderful wedding, I felt more at ease. Contrary to my light tone, Scott said.
Was he angry? I had no idea he was Emily's husband's parent. Why didn't you tell me?
I didn't know either. Predictably, Scott sounded confused and panicked.
That's not good enough. I'm on my way there now. I'll be there soon.
What? You're coming?
Of course. I have to apologize to the executive director.
A sigh escaped me at his words. My daughter's wedding was already over. And yet, he didn't come but is now coming to apologize to the executive director. It seemed he had been on the train, but had he returned? As I went down to the entrance, I spotted Scott rushing in. He seemed to have seen me too and hurried over.
Madeline! Where's the executive director? I don't know. What are you doing here now? If you could come now, you should have come from the start.
My voice echoed louder than I expected, drawing attention. However, this helped John's parents notice us, and they approached.
The executive director.
Oh, Scott. Finished with work? John's father said, teasingly. Scott looked sheepishly down.
I'm really sorry about today.
Yet, John's father spoke sternly.
You're apologizing to the wrong person. Have you apologized to Emily and Madeline?
Scott was nearly in tears. My drawing attention meant that everyone was now watching us.
Madeline, I'm sorry.
Always doing as his mother said, and now, only after being told by John's father, Scott finally apologized to me. The anger I thought had settled began to rise again. Where were you? I asked sternly. Scott paused before answering.
I was thinking of going to the spa with Mom.
And? Where is she now? I left her. Scott murmured softly.
You left her? What if something happened?
I said to Scott firmly once more.
She's not alone, so it should be fine.
He retorted. Those words made me question further. Not alone? Who is she with? Then, Scott's face turned pale instantly. I had assumed it was just the two of them. But judging by his reaction, there must have been someone else.
Well, you know, the staff at the spa. There are others around.
Scott frantically searched for words, laughing exaggeratedly. He must have slipped saying not alone, but once said, he couldn't take it back.
So, I heard the company band's working on holidays.
Where have you been all this time, lying about work?
Oh!
John's father crossed his arms and sighed deeply. Scott, startled by the sigh, seemed to shrink. I could only guess, but Scott must have someone he's close to. Probably someone even my mother-in-law approves of, and I imagined it was a woman. I trembled with anger. Scott looked back and forth between me and John's father, still searching for an escape. We're getting a divorce, I said to Scott. He looked at me in disbelief.
Skipping our daughter's wedding for a trip with your mother and a mistress? I don't ever want to see your face again.
Scott turned pale and stared at me. Realizing I was serious, he slowly knelt on the floor, still pale.
Madeline, I'm truly sorry. I don't want a divorce. Please forgive me.
I had intended to provoke him, but he started crying without denying the mistress word I mentioned.
As if I could forgive you. I'm the one who wants to cry.
John's mother gently patted my back. Feeling the strength of not being alone, I held back tears and said to Scott,
I'm definitely going through with a divorce. And I'll be asking for alimony. No! Madeline!
I'm going back home to pack my things and leave. Maybe you should go back to your mistress and mother-in-law? Enjoy your trip, I said and walked away. Scott, drawing attention from everyone around, broke down crying right there. I ended up moving in with Emily. It turns out that Scott's company's CEO is John's maternal grandfather. And John's father is the executive and the next CEO. John is currently working at a different company to learn the ropes but plans to take over eventually. Of course, I didn't directly know your husband, but I was surprised to find out he's Emily's father, he said with a smile. Despite the terrible things I did to him, I couldn't help but feel sorry. Yet, it was John who suggested I move in with them.
We found out Emily's dad isn't a nice person, but you're different, aren't you? You've always been on Emily's side, so Emily and I will always be on your side too.
Indeed, there was no mistake in the person Emily chose. I was determined to support them as much as possible without causing any trouble. One day, the doorbell rang. It was John's parents. I hadn't seen them since the wedding. It was 3 months ago. We all decided to have dinner together, called by John. Then, John's father said, "This is hard to say, but we decided to let Scott go."
What?
Emily and I looked at each other in shock.
I was concerned about that supposed holiday work, so I did some digging. If he really had been working, it would have been one thing. But it turned out he wasn't just working on holidays, he was charging personal trips as business expenses.
I was stunned by his words. We never went on any trips. That means he must have gone with my mother-in-law. I buried my face in my hands. How much more trouble could he cause? The room was filled with a heavy silence. Then the doorbell rang again.
Dad?
Emily yelled out, drawing everyone's attention. It was Scott, the executive director. Scott, having been let into the house, didn't seem to expect John's parents to be there. He hesitated upon seeing us, but then apologized.
Madeline, please forget about the divorce. I beg you.
And he was at it again with such nonsense. Since that incident, we had been in divorce mediation. Because Scott refused to agree to the divorce.
Stop torturing Mom. If you're so against divorce, why did you cheat? I also heard about the company money you used for trips. It's honestly shocking to know Dad is such a person.
Emily yelled at Scott. John tried to stop her, but I felt relieved hearing Emily speak her mind. Emily's right.
I had no choice.
Scott raised his voice, then, catching his breath, he began to explain.
Remember when you confronted Mom about bossing me around?
I paused, not understanding what he meant at first. Then, it dawned on me, it was when the kids were small, and I had directly confronted him to stop letting himself be manipulated.
You mean, that long ago? Since then, Mom told me to divorce once the kids were grown. She said I wouldn't be able to see them if we divorced now, so we waited until they were older. And after the divorce, I was supposed to marry a woman she introduced, and that's how that relationship started.
Not just I, but everyone was at a loss for words. To think he had been cheating because his mother-in-law said so, and it had been going on for so long.
But I still love you, Madeline. I don't want a divorce. The affair was just because Mom told me to. I had no choice.
Hearing those words, a deep loathing for Scott surged within me. Was it a visceral rejection?
Don't you have a will of your own? It would be better if you had cheated on your own volition.
I yelled at Scott. But he just looked puzzled.
Why? It wasn't my own will. Disgusting. Get out of my sight. As your mother says, now that they are grown, I'll grant you the divorce.
Scott begged me for forgiveness. But I couldn't stand his touch anymore and brushed his hands away.
I'm truly sorry. Please forgive me. Mom, let's go somewhere else. Wait, don't go.
Scott cried like a child, but to put some distance between us, Emily led me to another room.
If you truly love someone, letting them go is also an act of love,
John's father advised as we walked away, finally saying goodbye to a pathetic husband who had always obeyed his mother-in-law. After that, John's parents persuaded Scott, and we were finally able to divorce. But even after that, he repeatedly sought to talk to me. Just in case, I consulted the police. They issued a restraining order, and I felt genuinely relieved.
You heartless woman who hurt Scott.
My mother-in-law once barged into the house, but to me, now divorced from Scott, she was a stranger. I was planning to live with you and take care of you in your old age. Forget about that heartless woman, I said coldly.
I was wrong, can't you think it over again?
However, my mother-in-law, who had insulted me, suddenly put on a sickly sweet smile upon hearing my words. Her ludicrous expression made me laugh. As if I would reconsider. It's good to be rid of that baggage. Please have Scott or his mistress take care of you. You're good at manipulating Scott, aren't you? I said with a laugh, and my mother-in-law, looking frustrated, left without another word. Scott was incapable of caregiving. He hadn't even done housework before. Moreover, I heard rumors that his mistress had left him after he lost his job. It seems my mother-in-law and Scott are in for a lonely old age. Serves them right. Since then, I've been living happily with my daughter and her husband. I've become good friends with John's mother, enjoying trips and happy days together. Thanks to my job, I'm not struggling financially. Sean is getting married, and Emily is currently pregnant, with endless joyous news. Despite the hardships, there's much to look forward to. Life is just beginning. I always want to choose my own path to happiness. My name is Mary Manson. I'm a 33-year-old part-time worker. My husband, Harry, who is 2 years older than me, and I have been married for 4 years. We don't have any children yet, but we're hoping to have some one day. Although we occasionally fight, we're essentially a happy couple that you could find anywhere. This time, we decided to buy a car. A long-awaited vehicle for personal use. Since we live in a rented apartment, we ended up getting a new car before a new house. I like cars well enough and think I enjoy driving. Right after I got my license, I used to drive my dad's 86 frequently. However, currently, since my workplace is within walking distance, I haven't felt much need for a car as a means of commuting. Harry also bikes to his office. Mainly to get some exercise. Still, we've both always dreamed of owning a nice car. We had made discussions.
If I get a really nice car, I might try using it for commuting sometimes. It sounds kind of cool.
Kind of cool. Well, that's fine. But don't come crying to me if all the weight you lost by biking to work comes back.
Don't worry. Driving a car requires focus and burns calories, so I think it'll actually help me lose weight.
You and your wild theories. After much discussion, Harry and I decided that, considering the possibility of our family growing in the future, we would buy a brand new 6-seater van. It's obvious, but I was constantly excited about our shiny new car. I thought it might be challenging to get used to at first, but it turns out it's quite maneuverable and easy to drive. I immediately started enjoying my car life, going out for drives on weekends and choosing accessories for the car. True to his word, Harry began using the car for his commute now and then. Got compliments at the office for the car. They said it looks cool, he said proudly. Little did we know that our precious car would become the scene of such a nightmare. Huh? Something feels off. One day, as I was about to get into the driver's seat like usual, I noticed something felt strange inside the car. There was an odd smell. It wasn't the typical new car smell, but rather something more like body odor. While tilting my head, I used a car deodorizer. But since that day, I've noticed the smell seems to come from inside the car whenever I'm aware of it. The scent never completely goes away, and I began to wonder if it might be related to my own body odor or my husband's. I was kind of disappointed. It's a delicate topic, so I couldn't easily bring it up with my husband. When we were together in the car, I casually asked, "Hey, do you smell something odd?" However, my husband cheerfully responded, "Huh? A smell? Not at all. They say it's hard to notice your own body odor." On another day, I discovered a mysterious stain on the still new seats. I have no memory of it. Could it be my husband? I also casually asked him about it. Contrary to when I asked about the smell, he twitched his shoulders and said with a face and voice that clearly knew something, "Huh? I don't know." Way too suspicious. Is it something he feels he needs to hide from me? I was ready to forgive him if he just apologized, but my suspicion towards my husband only deepened. Is he treating the car carelessly when I'm not around? I secretly replaced the car's dashcam with one that has parking surveillance features. Then, I made it always on. In addition, I installed a small camera. At this point, I had to get to the bottom of it. I was going to catch whatever rough handling my husband was doing in clear evidence. However, what the camera captured after a while was shocking. What is this? You're kidding. It showed my husband and an unknown woman in a moment of intimacy. Moreover, both were undressed, engaging in acts too vile to speak of, inside my car. My blood boiled in an instant. I thought about confronting my husband right away but decided to calm down and watch the footage again. If I'm going to get revenge, I'm gonna do it in a big way. My husband and this woman appearing here, I decided to drag them both down to hell. I made up my mind and immediately began to act. Pretending not to notice my husband's infidelity on the surface. But, every day, looking at my husband's face, laughing carelessly, I lost count of how many times I wanted to punch him. And after all the preparations, the long-awaited day of action arrived. I swiftly got into the car where the two of them were in the midst of their affair and floored the accelerator. Starting a hellish drive with the two of them, stunned.
No!
The screams of my husband and his lover filled the air. Now, let's rewind a bit to the day I became aware of my husband's cheating. The first thing I did was investigate the woman he was having an affair with. A woman I had neither seen nor heard of before. She didn't seem to be a coworker at my husband's company. In fact, she didn't even look like she was part of the workforce. Quite young, she might be a college student. Going after a college student. Honestly, both my husband and this woman disgusted me. I continued to monitor the inside of the car with the dashcam and small camera. From the conversations recorded, it turned out, as expected, that this woman was indeed a college student. Her name is Sarah. Aged 21. She seems to attend a private university near our home. Living alone, with her parents in the neighboring state. Both parents are alive. Honestly, I was almost worried for her, talking so freely about being just an affair partner. Given how freely she talked, she might even be bragging about the affair at college. Hey, doing this kind of stuff in a married couple's car. It's gotta feel thrilling with the sense of immorality, right? Right? Lucky my wife bought a nice car. If you lay the back down like this, we can sleep, see? You're always so impatient. Oblivious to the fact I was listening, they carelessly went on. But really, they're disgustingly gross. That's a parking lot used by all the residents of the apartment. Don't they ever think they might be seen by someone? On a whim, I searched for Sarah's personal information online and quickly found her social media account. Maybe it's what you'd call a private account. According to it, the way she met my husband was through this car. Hey, that's a cool car. Can I take a closer look? Seems like this is her usual way to close the distance and lead things further. Because on her private account, there are hints of her being involved with men other than my husband. The thrill of an affair is just irresistible. Dumb wives don't even notice. Would anyone normally post that much openly on their account? No, it's because they're not normal that they do. Probably no sense of internet literacy. Just plain stupid. Because of this, I naturally stopped driving the car. Mary, you haven't been driving the car much lately, have you? Anything on your mind? Really? Well, I thought I'd move my body and get some exercise instead of just driving all the time. Even such a trivial question from my husband annoyed me. Probably, he's not thinking deeply, like whether his affair has been discovered. Just happy he gets more time to use the car, maybe. My husband, unaware of my icy glare, made a carefree remark about maybe driving the car himself sometime. Given the car was their place for rendezvous, it was inevitable that Harry and Sarah met mostly when I was out for work. Meaning, Harry was skipping work during the day, and Sarah probably wasn't attending her college classes much either. I decided to hire a detective agency. After about a month of gathering evidence of the infidelity, the day of my revenge finally arrived. Harry, I'll be out early this weekend. I'll be back late, so just eat dinner on your own. Oh, really? Are you going with the new one? No, I'll take the old one. Got it. Be careful. Of course, I wasn't really going out. It was a ruse. I pretended to leave but actually hid in the shadows of the garage, waiting for the two of them. Earphones in. I could hear everything inside the car. It's rare for you to want to meet up suddenly. Your wife isn't around today, even though you're off? She suddenly went out. Since I got some free time, I thought I'd meet up with you. Oh, Harry, you are so into me, don't you? Poor wife. That's right. I do, Sarah. See, I even do this. Oh, Harry. Let's take it slow. Seems like they got started right away. Really, they're so active. Or rather, I knew they were loud from watching the recordings, but they're really loud in person. It's a wonder they haven't been caught until now. Maybe they've developed a sense for it from all their sneaking around. All right, let's go. I stood up and walked briskly to my car. Excuse me. I opened the door with a click and quickly got into the driver's seat. I sat down with a thump and the seat cushion absorbed the impact. Huh? What? Who? There were clothes for two thrown on the passenger seat, so I said, getting in the way, and tossed them outside. Then, off we go. I started the engine and floored the accelerator, steering the wheel. The beginning of a hellish drive. What? What's happening? Wait, what? Mary? Still not grasping the situation, completely naked, I told them, well, sorry, but could you fix the seat back up? I'm planning on having more people ride later, but my matter-of-fact words seemed to snap them back to reality even more. Hey, wait a minute. What are you doing all of a sudden? Give me back my clothes. Mary, weren't you supposed to be out? He confronted me. Don't raise your voice too much. What if you distract me? I'm the one holding the steering wheel, which means I'm practically holding their lives in my hands. When I said this threateningly, Sarah gasped. What? Is she, possibly, Harry's wife? That's... Yes, I am Mary, Harry's wife. Nice to meet you, Sarah. Why, how do you know my name? These days, it's easy to find out all that. Your name, age, the university you attend, the address of the apartment you live in alone, that you ordered and ate a hamburger for delivery last night, and even that you have distinctive moles on your stomach and thighs. What? Hey! That's personal information. It's your fault for blabbing personal information where anyone can access it, isn't it? But don't worry, I have no intention of misusing it. What? I remembered I had also thrown their smartphones along with their clothes. If they had their phones, I could tell them to search the account name I was about to mention. Sarah's social media account and the dinner she posted last night, not to mention the slew of risque selfies. Well, we can deal with that later. Hey, where are we heading? Sarah's face clouded over as the scenery outside the car window changed. Naked and with nothing to cover themselves, Harry and Sarah were huddling in a squatting position. Remembering there might be a towel blanket in the car, Harry frantically searched the back. Sharing one towel blanket between them, they looked like they were survivors of a disaster.
Isn't this, like, kidnapping? Hey, stop the car. Let us out.
I can stop, but you'd be getting out naked in the middle of an unknown city, you know? Look, Mary. If you're mad, I'll apologize, so can we talk? So you're aware you've done something worth being angry about? Well, it's an affair, after all. Of course, I'd be mad. It's only natural, right? And with such an empty-headed fool. I added in my mind. You've done quite a lot in my precious car, it seems. What? Couldn't afford a hotel room? Meeting up in such an obvious place, how thoughtless can you be? The weird smell inside the car was from your body odor and fluids mixed together, wasn't it? I thought my nose would bend from the stench. No wonder the deodorizer couldn't completely eliminate it. If you do it every week in this car, that makes sense.
You, acting all high and mighty. But in the end, you didn't notice our relationship.
That's right. I noticed about a month ago. Since then, I've been monitoring you with the dashcam and a small recorder. Didn't you realize? What? Recorder? The dashcam shouldn't be working if the engine isn't on. Harry and Sarah stared at the dashcam fixed in front of them. Normally, yes. But there are ways around that. Like adding a parking surveillance feature, always on, you know. You seemed completely at ease, but this past month's rendezvous is all captured on camera. So, relax. Where is there anything to be relaxed about?
Camera, you say. Delete it. Right now.
No can do. It's important evidence. Look, we're almost at our first destination, so could you fix the seats quickly? What? Destination. Harry looked out the window. Recognizing the familiar scenery, his face turned pale. No, wait, this place is.
Here we are. We've arrived.
The destination was Harry's family home. In other words, my in-laws. And before the two in the car could react, the car door opened.
No!
Harry screamed as the person joined us. Entering from Harry's side of the door, my father-in-law. They had a demonic expression, and my mother-in-law, sitting next to me on the passenger seat, had a chilling gaze. Dad, Mom. Why? What? Who? Harry's dad and mom.
Harry, you've really done something terrible.
Really? Now, Mary, please let them out. All right. Off we go. I started the car again. With the two of them frozen in shock, my father-in-law adjusted the seats, and in the second row, 3 people were crammed together, Harry, Sarah, and my father-in-law, in that order. This hellish arrangement. Dad, why? Even in this situation, I admire my husband's audacity to ask.
Why, you ask? You big fool.
Eek.
No! When Mary contacted us, I couldn't believe my ears. I never thought you'd have an affair.
That's. My father-in-law, furious, my husband, flustered. And Sarah, trying to be invisible next to them. I had already reported my husband's infidelity to my in-laws. Showing them the video recorded inside the car was worth it because I wanted solid evidence. My in-laws were so shocked they looked like their jaws might drop, then they exploded in anger towards my husband. This guy, how could he? To cheat on Mary, your wife, unbelievable.
Yes. How filthy. To think our son would do such a thing, oh, I can't believe it.
Father, mother, I plan to divorce Harry. I'm not noble enough to continue our marriage after this. Yes, that's for the best. I'm sorry, Mary, I'm sorry.
I agree with the divorce. Just thinking if my husband could do such a thing makes me sick.
If there's anything we can do, just say it. We'll help with anything. I feel the same way. Mary,
You're not planning to divorce him without any consequences, right?
Yes. I'm going to make these two take full responsibility. My in-laws and I were united in spirit on this day. Even in such times, the car moved smoothly. Unable to endure the situation of being incessantly scolded by his parents, Sarah raised her voice.
Hey, hey. I'm not involved anymore, right? Let me out. I'm fine with this.
I won't let you out. You're needed at the next destination. And you, not involved? Having an affair with a married man? You must be joking?
I didn't know. It's not my fault. This man attacked me out of nowhere. Since then, I couldn't resist. I'm a victim. Hey, Sarah, what are you saying? You're the one who seduced me, right? I told you I was married, didn't I? What? You say you're married, but you were all eager to make a move. Don't try to shift the blame. You thought I was seriously into you? That's a joke. An old man like you.
What? If I keep quiet and listen, this. Quiet. Both of you, just be quiet. When I calmly spoke up, the two of them immediately fell silent. Who made the first move or whatever, I don't care anymore. We're past that stage. And both of you were excited about this affair, so stop this pathetic arguing. It's really disgusting. I glanced at my mother-in-law sitting in the passenger seat and called out, Mother. Please search the account name I'm about to tell you on your smartphone. Understood. Here you go. First, type in capital letters. As I spelled out the account name, Sarah's complexion gradually faded. Wait, is this correct? Thank you. Please show that account to the people in the back as well. What's this? It was Sarah's private social media account I had found. Starting with a dumb self-introduction, it was filled with risque selfies and dates with multiple men. Seeing this, Harry's face also changed color. Apparently, he thought he was the only one seeing Sarah. How naive. A little research, and it was all there. Please scroll back a bit on those posts. You'll find posts that seem to be about Harry. My mother-in-law did as told, scrolling through the screen. Is this it? She then presented the found post to my father-in-law and the others. Met in the car again today. Always in the car, doesn't he get tired of it? I'm so nice for seeing him like this. Seems like he drives a pretty nice car, but no money? Spent it all on the car? It's thrilling, but kinda hurts my body. I wish he'd at least pay for a hotel, old man. A stunning array of dumb texts. Shown the account, Harry was trembling. Is this real? It's real. Sarah's genuine account. That's not true. That's not me. It's someone else. A totally unknown person's account. Is that so? Then, how about we compare the risque selfies there with your body? They're quite distinctive, so I think we can easily tell if it's you or someone else. Hush. Sarah's face contorted. Had she finally realized the extent of what she'd been doing? Too late now. Could it be? Sarah, you've been mocking me behind my back. Well, it's true that Harry is stingy.
What? Harry's always been my last priority. Excuse me.
Sarah raised her voice, perhaps in defiance. And Harry reacted to every word. My father-in-law silently glared at them both. The back seat was indeed a hellish place. We're almost at our next destination. As I said that, everyone reflexively looked outside. Oh. That place. Then, Sarah's complexion turned deathly pale.
Hey, wait. This place. No, stop. Let me out.
We're not stopping. Here we are, arrival. Please get back in later. We stopped in front of a certain house. I operated the door to open from the driver's seat.
No.
Sarah screamed. The door opened to reveal Sarah's parents. They were stern-faced to a frightening degree. "It's a tight fit, but please, come in," I said, and they nodded politely before getting into the car. Now, there were 7 of us.
Why are my dad and mom here?"
Sarah exclaimed, just like Harry had. "Why? Maybe you should use your head a bit." "It's obvious because I told them. It seems your daughter is having an affair with my husband." I had sent a certified letter to Sarah's parents' home, investigated by a detective agency, to inform them of the affair and today's plan.
You! What have you done?"
Sarah screamed, but it was like water off a duck's back to me.
"That's my line. What have you done?" "No. Dad. An affair. And not just with one man, you've been involved with multiple men. What's with these SNS posts? Posting such pictures, aren't you ashamed?"
Oh. Knowing her parents had learned about her private account must have been mortifying. With 2 uproarious families aboard, we stopped at a service area, our final destination. It was the climax. I turned to Harry, smiling sweetly as I handed him the divorce papers. "You probably understand by now, but will you divorce me?"
"Well, Mary. Please, listen to me."
I don't want to hear that kind of response. What I want is a simple yes or no. Then, I took out another document. "This is for the payment of damages and the car payment agreement. Sarah, you need to sign this too."
"What? Why me too?"
"Because you knew he was married and still had an affair. You had it coming. I'll be getting damages from both Harry and Sarah. These documents were made with a lawyer, so there shouldn't be any issues."
"I can't pay damages. I'm still a college student."
"And? You should have thought about that before having an affair with a married man. Work yourself to death. What's this about car payments? I'm charging you that since my car was used for an affair, right? I can't stand using it anymore, it grosses me out. This much money. I can't. You're gonna pay, no matter what. I'll make sure of it, by any means necessary." I stared at Harry and Sarah. They were trembling finally, faced with the reality they were confronted with.
"Hey, Dad, Mom. Help me out. Convince Mary Manson, please. Dad, Mom, is this okay? Your daughter is gonna be drowned in debt if this continues. Hurry up and help. Do something about this ridiculous woman."
Both of them were begging their parents for help. However, their parents sharply rejected their pleas.
"Don't be ridiculous. Cleaning up the mess you've made is your own responsibility. It's Mary's right to demand compensation. Pay up. Don't trouble her any further."
"That's right.
"And stop bothering us. After discussing with your father, we've decided to cut ties with you." "What? No way."
Sarah, you too. This is your responsibility. You made your bed, now lie in it. We're not helping you at all."
"No. Dad. Mom."
"Sarah, I heard you've hardly been to college, right? Then, there's no need to pay for your tuition anymore. If you have time to meet with men, why don't you just drop out and start working right away? If you don't work, you won't have money, and you can't pay the compensation."
"Please. Help me, help me."
Sarah was clinging to her parents, crying. Her face was a mess with tears, snot, and sweat, looking utterly pathetic. "Harry, just sign this already." After being rejected by her in-laws, she pushed the divorce papers towards her despondent husband again. Hey, Mary, please, forgive me. Stop crying and hold the pen." She made her pathetic crying husband hold the pen and sign the divorce papers. She also got a signature on a pledge. Sarah, with her messy face, signed under her parents' watchful eyes. "All right. You're free to do as you like now." After checking the documents, I quickly got out of the car. Harry and Sarah were left looking dumbfounded with their dirty faces. The parents, understanding the situation, bowed their heads to me as I stepped out of the car. I walked a little through the service area parking lot and tapped on the window of a familiar parked car. Mary. Well done.
Really? Oh, I'm exhausted.
Inside the car, my parents were waiting. I had informed them of the plan in advance and had them wait at the service area. The footage from the other car's camera was also set up to be viewable on my mother's laptop, so my parents had been watching that hell unfold as well. The continuous footage showed Harry and Sarah arguing with their parents and then being scolded again.
Let's go home.
Oh, can we stop by the diner on the way back? I'm hungry. Sure. My dad took the wheel and pressed the accelerator. The culmination of the revenge plan was a family drive, something we hadn't done in a long time. Afterward, Harry and I successfully divorced. As declared, Harry and Sarah were disowned by their parents and are desperately working to pay for the damages and the car. Though we communicate through the lawyer, so far, there have been no delays in payments. I hope everything gets paid off smoothly without any issues. I moved back to my parents' house. With some distance now, I decided to commute to work by train. For a while, I planned to cherish the time with my parents and take it easy. So, are we taking the car today, or your place? Let's go to a hotel. On my way back from the hospital, I saw my husband walking hand in hand with a young woman. Who in the world is she? She was dressed in revealing clothing, and I think she was over 10 years younger than my husband. She didn't look like someone from his work. Could it be an affair? Even though it was on the way back from a donor test for a disease he was diagnosed with. I somehow managed to keep my emotions in check and confronted my husband with a glare when he returned home that evening.
I saw you walking with a young woman. What's that all about? Betraying me like this is the lowest. How could you do something so awful?
What do you think you are?
Do you think you're such a great woman? Marriage is supposed to be supported by the man, and the moment a woman stops being a woman, it's over. Men always want young and attractive women.
What is he talking about? There's no way marriage can fall apart for such selfish reasons. It seems like my husband is trying to justify his cheating. I will never forgive him.
You menopausal hag are not needed. Should I divorce you?
Divorce?
I've been thinking about it for a while, but you never get pregnant, and as a woman, you're finished. You look old, and you're completely unattractive, so I've wanted to leave you. That's why I cheated and was drawn to a younger woman. It's obvious, right?
Fine, then let's get a divorce. But don't forget, you're the one carrying a big bomb in your body. And who's going to help you with that? My name is Kelly. I'm currently working as an office clerk at a small-sized business. Although I'm working as a clerk, I originally joined the company as a salesperson. I'm back.
Welcome back.
How was it today? Well, I got brushed off lightly. I'm sorry, I couldn't secure the deal even though it was a project our coworker had been warming up. Don't worry too much about it. It can't be helped, so don't get too down on yourself. He was the coworker responsible for my training. He was truly kind to me. He taught me everything from scratch about sales, and I was trying my best to follow his teachings, but I think my personality, not being very assertive and shrinking away at even a slightly domineering attitude, wasn't suited for it. My sales performance was always closer to the bottom, and I felt out of place in the company. Because it was a small to medium-sized business, everyone was talking about working hard together to increase the company's sales, but I felt like I was the only one holding everyone back. I wondered if I should quit, or maybe I should switch to a different profession. That's when I started to think. Can I have a moment?
Oh, what's up?
I heard we're looking for a new office clerk. That's right. The company has grown a bit, and we're thinking of adding more people to handle the administrative tasks. Do you know someone who wants to apply? Not exactly. I was wondering if it would be okay for me to apply. I've been trying hard in sales for the past 2 years, but I haven't been able to produce much results. I feel like I'm dragging everyone else down. Even when there's a good project, I can't make it a success because it's me. There have been many instances like that. So, if it's possible, I'd like to work as an office clerk. I see. To me, it seemed like moving to an office clerk position and filling the sales position from outside would be beneficial for the company. Of course, I felt sorry for the coworker who had trained me, but it was also a relief for me mentally. I understand. I've heard from other employees about the struggles you're facing, and I think you can handle administrative tasks to a certain extent, so if you're okay with it, let's go ahead and make that change. Really? But about the salary, it's going to be what an office clerk makes, is that okay? Of course. No problem at all. Understood. I started working as an office clerk right away, and since I only had to deal with employees I got along with, there was no need to be overly cautious or tense. Indeed, the salary was less compared to when I was in sales, but being able to work without accumulating stress truly brightened my days. Then, through an acquaintance, I started dating a man, and both my work and personal life were fulfilling. I vow to always cherish you. Will you marry me? Really? You really want to marry me? Of course. I'll always protect you. I was overjoyed to the point of tears when my boyfriend proposed. I had always lacked confidence in myself, believing there was no one who would want to marry someone like me. That had always been my belief, so the proposal overwhelmed me emotionally. Moving from sales to an administrative position was also one of my complexes. I couldn't properly handle even a single task given to me. I had been a negative thinker originally and had convinced myself of this for a while. Of course, while the stress from work had disappeared, the fact that my self-confidence continued to diminish was undeniable. That's why I vowed to cherish him, the one who chose me. In my heart, I swore that I would. After that, our married life began, and we lived a problem-free life as a working couple. However, hey, could you cover the living expenses? In exchange, I'll save up. You mean I pay everything? Yeah. I'll take out my allowance and save the rest. That's okay, right? This is one of my flaws, but when spoken to harshly, I find myself unable to talk back. I was only making a modest salary as an office clerk, so after paying for rent, groceries, and utilities, there wasn't much money left over. Upon getting married, we moved into a reasonably large apartment and, though it was used, we also bought a car. We had agreed to split expenses equally, so I assumed that's how it would be. Got it. But I'm a bit surprised. I had assumed we'd split everything. It's easier if you handle all the expenses, right? As for savings, I'll manage all of that, so don't worry. Well, if my husband says so, maybe it's for the best. Plus, if he's putting most of his salary into savings, I figure we could save up a substantial amount in a short period. We were hoping to have kids in the future, so I wanted to save as much as possible. That's why I accepted his proposal. However, after getting married, he started going out more at night. Hello, you're not coming home yet? I'm going out drinking with colleagues tonight, so I won't be home until late. Again? What? I'm not your parent. Don't butt into my private life. It's my business who I go out drinking with, isn't it? Yeah. Sure, we had agreed not to interfere with each other's private lives after getting married. And it's not that I'm against him going out to drink. It's just frustrating when he goes out without any communication. I get home earlier than him, so I cook and wait. There's a usual time he comes home, and I even prepare the bath, so I wish he would at least call. If he let me know, I'd just make something quick to eat and take a bath after finishing the chores. Just a simple message would do. I've brought this up a few times, but my husband didn't seem to care at all. Maybe he doesn't understand because he doesn't cook or do household chores himself. And then, his personality changes when he drinks. That's why I couldn't really say much. Hey, the lord of the house has returned. Welcome back. Oh, hello. Sorry, it seems he got pretty drunk. Sorry for the trouble. Thank you for bringing him home. Around midnight that day, my husband was brought home by a coworker he had been drinking with. He was so drunk he couldn't walk on his own. I couldn't help but be frustrated that he, being an adult, didn't know his own limits when drinking. Since he was drunk, saying anything to him would be pointless. I thanked the coworker who brought him home and took my husband to bed. He fell asleep right away and around noon the next day. Hey, got any medicine? Medicine? For what? What? Obviously, for a hangover. Why do I have to spell it out? You should have prepared that, knowing I went drinking. Sorry, I'll go buy some right now. Make it quick, and be back in 10 minutes. What does he think I am? I sighed but went to the nearby pharmacy by bike without a complaint. It was already winter, and just riding the bike made my dry skin on my face and hands painfully dry. If he's going to drink, he should buy his medicine beforehand. Why do I have to do this? As I went to buy it, I felt anger towards my husband bubbling up inside. I'm home. I got the medicine. You took your time. You're slow at everything. That's why you can only be an office clerk. Even though I went out of my way to buy it, not a single word of thanks. Can't even say thank you. I was truly appalled, but it's not like I was expecting anything from my husband. Well, someone who's used to bossing people around probably doesn't have gratitude in their vocabulary. So, he can't even say thank you. Well, it's not my problem. While complaining, my husband took the medicine from me, swallowed it, changed clothes, and then left the house. Going out again. It was his day off, so he can do whatever he wants, but I did wish he would help out with the chores a bit. I take care of everything during the weekdays, so it wouldn't hurt him to help out on the weekends. Even just one day, either Saturday or Sunday. But since we got married, my husband has never once helped out with the chores. Being the timid person I am, I thought I wanted a man who could take the lead initially. But now, thinking about it, he's just selfish and looks down on others. I was getting sick of these days, but then suddenly, one day. Can we talk? I have something important to tell you. Something important. Is it about work? No. It's about my illness. I've been feeling off lately, and I've been having trouble breathing even while working. So, I went to the doctor, and they found a disease. You're kidding, right? I was shocked by my husband's revelation since I always thought of him as someone strong who rarely even caught a cold. My husband having a disease. I never imagined it, nor did he show any signs. However, according to him, the disease is quite advanced, and he needs an organ transplant as soon as possible. We need to look for a donor, so it's not immediate, but the situation seems pretty serious. So, you don't need to be hospitalized? They gave me some medication, so I should be okay for a while. But I do need a donor, so I need you to go to the hospital this weekend for a test. If you're a match, I'll need you to be the donor. When my husband told me that, something deep inside me skipped a beat. Of course, if there was anything I could do for my husband, I wanted to extend all the help I could. That's what marriage should be about, after all. However, if possible, I didn't want to donate an organ. One reason was that my husband hadn't been treating me with the respect and care a wife deserves. To him, I seemed like just a tool to be used at his convenience. The only time I felt cherished as his wife was during the first month of our marriage. Additionally, I was scared of undergoing surgery. Of course, facing someone in need of a donor, saying I'm scared of surgery shouldn't really be an excuse. Being mentally fragile, I understood what needed to be done but couldn't bring myself to make that decision. So, what was the outcome? It was a match. We can schedule the surgery for a day that works for you. I took a day off work the next day to go for the testing at the hospital. I hadn't told my husband, but the result was a match. I could save my husband's life, that was the outcome. No matter how much my husband might not cherish me, he was still my partner whom I had married. Of course, the surgery scared me, but I resolved to donate my organ for my husband. However, that day. Should we take the car today, or go to your place?
Let's go to a hotel.
On my way back from the hospital, I saw my husband walking hand in hand with a young woman. Who in the world was she? She was dressed in revealing clothes, and I think she was more than 10 years younger than my husband. She didn't look like someone from his work. Could it be an affair? Indeed, my husband often came home late at night, but I thought it was just because he was out drinking with colleagues. However, was he actually spending those nights enjoying himself with a mistress? There he was, right in front of my eyes, walking hand in hand with a younger woman. This was unbelievable and a complete betrayal to me. My head went blank, and I was in total panic, but my husband left without even noticing my state. I took a deep breath, somehow managed to calm myself down, and went home. That evening when my husband came back, I confronted him with a glare.
I saw you walking with a young woman.
What's that all about? Oh, you saw that?
Yes, I did. Betraying me like this is the lowest. How could you do something so awful? What do you think you are? Do you think you're such a great woman? Marriage is supposed to be supported by the man, and the moment a woman stops being a woman, it falls apart. Men always want young and attractive women.
What is he talking about? There's no way marriage can fall apart for such selfish reasons. It seems like my husband is trying to justify his cheating. I will never forgive him. He's been using me all this time, probably because he no longer sees me as his wife. My suspicions were correct. To him, I'm nothing significant. Just a convenient existence who pays the living expenses and takes care of the house and meals. How dare he look down on people?
You're not going to do something like this and not be accountable for it, are you?
Yeah, maybe.
A menopausal hag like you isn't needed. Should I divorce you? Excuse me? I've been thinking about it for a while. You can't get pregnant, and as a woman, you're finished. You look like an old lady, and you're utterly unattractive, so I've wanted to leave you. That's why I cheated and was drawn to a younger woman. It's obvious, right?
This is ridiculous. What does he think marriage is? I never thought he looked down on me to this extent. But, having it said so plainly, I actually felt relieved. He was sick, and he was my partner whom I had married. I thought I might have some mixed feelings, but now I've completely let go. He wants a divorce? Then, I'll gladly grant it. But let this be clear. I will never forgive what he has done.
If you want a divorce, I'll give it to you. But don't bother me anymore. You better not come back begging for a remarriage. I'm cutting all ties with you.
Understood. I said that and had him sign the divorce papers. The divorce was finalized quickly, and since the apartment lease was in my ex-husband's name, I left, and our life together ended. Then, I started preparing for alimony claims and contacted him a month later. I didn't want to talk to him directly, so I had the lawyer who helped me with the alimony claims contact him, but that evening, my ex-husband called me multiple times. I didn't want to talk to such a person or hear his voice, but thinking I should spill all my feelings, I decided to pick up the phone. Hey. What do you mean you were the organ donor? That was the first thing my ex-husband said. I hadn't told him at the time of our divorce, but the day I found out about his affair was the day I found out I could donate an organ to him. Looking back, if I hadn't known about the affair at that time, I would have unknowingly donated an organ to a betrayer. I thought to myself that God must be watching over me, and I decided then there was no way I'd donate an organ to him. Of course, not telling him anything was an option, but this was my form of revenge.
While you were out enjoying yourself with a younger woman, I was worried sick about you and went through the organ donation tests. It turns out I'm a match, but I have no intention of helping a betrayer. Don't say that! If you don't donate, I'll have to start looking all over again. Please! Then tell me, what's in it for me? I see no benefit in donating an organ.
It might sound heartless, but I wasn't willing to sacrifice my body to help my ex-husband, not even if there were benefits. Even if there had been some advantage, I couldn't bring myself to extend a hand to my ex-husband. The emotional wounds my ex-husband inflicted were deep, and I wanted him to understand that.
I thought I was supposed to donate an organ because I was your wife. But who betrayed whom?
Sure, but that's a different story. Just your cooperation could save a precious life. Life is equal, I believe that. There's no difference in the weight of lives, and everyone has the same value. But I couldn't see this monster, this mass of desires, as a person. Even if no donor was found in the end, that's just how it would be. It would only be what he had coming for what he's done all this time. That's all I could think of. I don't feel sorry for him if his illness gets worse, he can deal with it himself.
If you get better and are let loose, there will just be more women who suffer like I did. Maybe it's better if you never get cured.
What kind of thing is that to say to a sick person?
You didn't give a toss about me, so why should I care about you as a sick person? Don't you see the contradiction in what you're saying? You're the one talking nonsense. What do you think human life is? I have more morals than you. But even denying that, I don't want to help you. Besides, I'm a stranger to you now.
When my ex-husband realized I had no intention of donating, he seemed to slump, starting to make groaning sounds. How pitiful. I didn't feel a bit of sympathy for him and just wanted to end the call quickly.
Is that all? Oh, and I think the lawyer has contacted you about the alimony. Make sure to transfer it properly.
That's crazy, that much money?
It's not crazy at all. You were the one who said you wanted to save up, so you wanted me to pay all the living expenses. But then it turns out you were just squandering money on your mistress.
You think that's okay? This was revealed during the divorce, but the savings I thought we would divide, which my ex-husband claimed he had, were almost non-existent. Since I paid all the living expenses, I had the right to half of the savings. However, he had none because he had spent it all on his escapades. It was clear he had been betraying me from the start of our marriage. I will make sure to get the money I deserve. I don't have any money. Plus, I have a lot of expenses coming up. Right, moving out, paying me, and your medical bills. I wonder how you'll manage all that. If you understand, then why did you make such a claim? Because that's how you take responsibility as an adult in society. After more than a decade in the workforce, don't you know such basic common sense? I'm so appalled I'm at a loss for words.
It's common sense. Besides, if you don't pay, I'll have my lawyer take it to court. If you're prepared for that, go ahead.
My ex-husband must know he's 100% in the wrong, but he's probably hoping to somehow make me reconsider, knowing he'll be in real trouble if things continue as they are. No sign of remorse. If there was even a hint of regret, there might have been room for mercy, but it seems like people who betray others will always continue to do so.
Wait a minute. That's just not right. If you do that, you'll regret it later. You'll definitely have days of regret. Absolutely.
So what? No matter how you try to persuade me, my decision won't change. But I was gradually getting more irritated by my ex-husband's attitude. Sure, he must be shocked that I was the organ donor, and deep down, he's regretting his choices. But if he's regretting it, why isn't apologizing an option? A sincere apology. Before making excuses and spouting nonsense, shouldn't that be the first thing to do? Without an apology, all he said to me was, "You'll regret this." Does he think threatening me will make me donate an organ? With such a character, it's no wonder no one will ever come forward to help him.
See, it's because you only think of yourself that nobody wants to help you. You don't think you've done anything wrong, do you?
What? If you were a bit more reflective on what you've done, you could at least apologize, right? I'm asking if you're sorry for what you did to me. Of course, I'm sorry. So, about the organ donation.
You apologize regardless of the organ donation, right? Then you apologize. You are asking me to donate my organs? You're kidding, right? Stop joking.
No matter what I said, it was hopeless. Maybe I was foolish to have even a shred of expectation. Expecting such a person to reflect on their actions is futile. That's why I chose not to give him another chance, but to divorce him and make him pay alimony. I've had enough. Engaging with him any further is a waste of time, and I decided to put an end to it. I don't know what you'll do from here on, but I will never help you. Just keep that in mind. No matter the situation, my stance won't change. And about the alimony, if you can't pay, I'll have the lawyer take it to court. I ended the call with just that. From then on, I left all communications to the lawyer, so I didn't say anything directly to him, but he was definitely living a miserable life. Actually, he quit his job because of a stress-related illness. Stress caused it? Yes. He was terrified of not finding someone to donate an organ. Of course, it doesn't seem like his life is in immediate danger, but the excessive stress did him in. I was surprised that such a shameless character could feel stress. If he could feel stress, he should have been more considerate of my feelings. Then, he might understand how it feels to be cheated on or used like a tool, and how much stress that can cause. Well, even if he understood, I doubt it would have changed anything. But you got the alimony paid, right? How did he manage that? It was quite a sum. Oh, that? He must have borrowed it. Borrowed? Yes. It seems he borrowed a significant amount from consumer finance and used that to pay. But now, he can't repay it and has been contacting everyone he knows for help. He even tried to contact me, but I ignored him. You ignored him? After all he did to you, my dear friend, using and betraying you like that. He deserves it. Not only is he not getting help from his friends, but now he's also fighting against loneliness on top of his illness. Well, this situation is entirely his own doing, and I think it's a hard lesson learned. If he can't even understand how despicable his actions were and how much trouble he caused me, then as a person, he's finished. Well, he's finished, and that's probably why no one is reaching out to help him. But maybe his affair partner would stand by him? Like a sole source of comfort? No, they've already split up. Really? Yeah, you haven't heard? That person was only after his money, it seems. Moved on to another man already. I was honestly surprised that even his affair partner had left him. But, thinking about it, it makes sense. My ex-husband spent most of his earnings on his affair partner. That means he was spending tens of thousands of dollars a month on her. For an affair partner, someone spending that much money on them every month is nothing but an easy mark. But once she realized she couldn't squeeze any more out of him, she disappeared. Seeing him treated this way made me wonder if he'd end up distrusting people, but if he did, in the end, it's all his fault. Well, since he used and deceived me for so long, if he gets deceived and used himself, he can hardly complain. He's done the same thing. That's right. Well, we don't know what will happen to him from here, but it's none of our business anyway. You're right, thinking any more about my ex-husband is pointless. I've completely forgotten about him and am enjoying my second life. As an office worker, my salary is still low, and it's not exactly a fulfilling job. But being needed and appreciated by my coworkers makes me feel that it's good to be doing this job. I still think about the organ donation situation from time to time. Even considering everything my ex-husband did, there will always be people who criticize my decision to refuse organ donation. Morally, it might be argued that my choice was wrong. But everything is the result of the choices he made, and I have no regrets about mine. Whatever suffering he endures from here on out is none of my concern. Let him continue to suffer for his sins, that's how I see it as his atonement. Marriage isn't just about paperwork. It's a declaration of intent to support and help each other no matter what. But someone who easily betrays that commitment will eventually be betrayed themselves, and what they've done will surely come back to them. To avoid becoming like my ex-husband, I plan to continue valuing the people and environment around me and live my life accordingly. Ta-da! Surprise!
Mom's coming along with us.
That's what my excited husband announced as his voice echoed through the entryway. Ignoring my cheerful husband and mother-in-law, I couldn't hide my surprise. And no wonder. Because the trip my husband mentioned Mom would be joining us on was our honeymoon. Confused about what he was saying, my husband's face turned into a pout of dissatisfaction.
What's the matter? Aren't you happy?
Happy was the last thing I was. He should have known that. Especially since my relationship with my mother-in-law was the worst, something I had complained about bitterly. It seemed she couldn't forgive me for stealing her precious son. Whenever she saw me, she would pile on the sarcasm as much as she could. The annoying part was, she never showed that side of herself in front of my husband. She was thoroughly playing the role of the good mother-in-law. Perhaps because of that, even when I confided in my husband about being mistreated, he hardly believed me. But still, he should have been well aware of my discomfort around his mother. Despite that, he went ahead and planned this. What was he thinking?
Wait a minute. It's the day of, isn't it? There's no way we can get plane tickets or a hotel at this point.
Of course, I hadn't booked anything for my mother-in-law. It was absurd to think we could get her on board without reservations, especially during peak travel season. Explaining that to him, my husband snorted as if it were obvious.
Well then, give me all your tickets. I'll go with Mom.
He reached out his hand as if it was the most natural thing in the world, leaving me speechless with disbelief. What on earth was he thinking? This wasn't just any trip. It was our honeymoon. Who in the world goes on their honeymoon with their mother? Well, I wouldn't want to go on any trip with this mother-in-law either. As I stood there with my mouth agape, my mother-in-law wore a triumphant look. She must have been so proud that her son chose her first.
Come on, hurry up. I paid for it, so it shouldn't matter, right?
He thinks just because he paid for the trip, he can do whatever he wants. That's when it hit me.
Speaking of which, about the cost of this trip.
My name is Grace. I'm 28 years old and work for my father's company. At the start, there were many who questioned my qualifications due to nepotism, but as I diligently worked and started producing results, I gradually began to hear people appreciating my efforts. Despite this, simply because I am the CEO's daughter, there are still those who speak ill of me behind my back, and sometimes their cruel words do hurt. The one who supported me through these challenges was my husband, Lucas. Lucas is the same age as me, and since we were assigned to the same team, we quickly became close and started confiding in each other. It didn't take long for us to begin dating. Lucas, who was adept at his job and significantly contributed to our achievements, was highly regarded by my father, who was all for our marriage when we announced it.
So, you're Lucas, huh? I've heard a lot about you. I'm entrusting my daughter to you. Yes, I'll make sure she's happy.
I fondly remember watching their exchange back then. At that time, my father was contemplating handing over the company and had discussed it with the other executives, leading to widespread speculation that Lucas might be the next CEO. The idea of my marriage seemed to present an opportunity for my father to consider a transition of leadership within the company. Having someone from within the family, especially someone as competent as Lucas, take over the business was probably not something my father was entirely against. I've never been one to seek the limelight, so the thought of my skilled husband taking over was nothing short of ideal for me. That's probably what everyone, including my father, was thinking. However, when we had dinner together, he often spoke about the mindset required for running a business, suggesting what might eventually come to pass. Lucas's father had already passed away, and his mother was living alone. Lucas dearly loved his mother, always ready to rush to her aid whenever she needed help, even during our dates. He felt a deep sense of gratitude for being raised single-handedly by her and would apologetically express his desire to repay her, which I would support with a smile. Seeing how much he cared for his mother made me think, what a wonderful man he is. I felt proud to be dating such a person. However, after we got married and started living together, I began to notice things that made me question.
I'm going to see my mom for a bit.
That sentence had become almost a catchphrase for him. And he was visiting his mother almost every week.
Is your mom feeling ill?
I would ask out of concern, but it seemed that was not the case.
Grace, you don't need to worry. Everyone needs some alone time, right?
Initially, he would reassure me with those words and a gentle pat on the head, but even that had stopped recently. One Saturday morning, as Lucas was cheerfully getting ready to leave, I asked him,
"Hey, are you going to her place today?"
Upon hearing this, his previously cheerful demeanor immediately changed, and he let out a heavy sigh.
Why do you have to say it like that?
His words made me flinch. I realized too late that my tone might have sounded accusatory. He turned around and glared at me.
It can't be helped. She's all alone at home. You understand I'm just checking in on her because you're not comfortable, right?
His words made me step back. Yes, I was uneasy around her. It wasn't always like that. After all, she was the mother of the man I loved. I initially thought I should cherish my husband's mother just as much as he does. That was my initial intention. But it turns out, just because you feel a certain way doesn't mean the other person will feel the same towards you. My mother-in-law seemed to view me as a cat burglar who stole her son away. Ever since we met, she's been seizing every opportunity when Lucas isn't around to throw snide remarks my way. It happened for the first time when I went to greet her. Lucas had left to use the bathroom, and as soon as the sound of his footsteps faded, her demeanor changed completely. From her previously pleasant expression, she looked me up and down as if appraising me, her gaze cold and assessing.
I don't care if you're some CEO's daughter or whatever, you're nothing special.
Before I could even recover from the shock, she continued with her venomous words.
To think you'd have the nerve to show your face after stealing Lucas from me. I don't accept you at all. Make no mistake about it.
She sneered at me, then loudly slurped her tea in a vulgar manner. Naturally, she hadn't offered any tea to me.
Mom? Don't call me Mom. It's creepy.
I wondered why someone I was meeting for the first time would harbor such hostility towards me. Despite my attempts to speak up, I was immediately shut down by her. As I stood there confused, I could hear Lucas returning from the bathroom. And just like that, she flipped back to her pleasant facade, offering me tea as if she had just remembered.
Oh, dear, I'm so sorry. I haven't even served you tea.
She laughed lightly, and Lucas, upon returning, gave a wry smile.
What's the matter, Mom? You haven't served tea yet? Such a lovely young lady, Lucas. I can't believe I forgot to serve tea,
she said, her face breaking into a kindly smile.
I'd be delighted if you felt comfortable enough to call me Mom.
I felt a chill run down my spine. Ever since then, she's been consistently nasty to me whenever Lucas isn't around. It's like dealing with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Lucas seems oblivious to the malice his mother shows only to me. Whenever I couldn't bear it and tried to talk to him about it, he'd stubbornly insist that his mom could never say such things.
If it bothers you that much, you don't have to see her.
He looked disappointed, not believing a word I said. I used to plead my case fervently. But eventually, I gave up trying to clear up the misunderstanding, seeing as he always took his mother's side. So, I took Lucas at his word and started avoiding visits to my in-laws. Unless it was absolutely necessary. To Lucas, it must seem like I simply detest his precious mother for no reason.
Just make sure to lock up, okay?
He said today, too, heading out to see her without looking back at me. My hand stretched out to him, grasping at the air. Lucas's back blurs through my tears. On the days we fight over his mother, Lucas doesn't come home. It feels like he's showing me that his mother is more important to him than his wife, me. If it weren't for issues with his mother, Lucas would be a great husband. When work isn't going well for me, he's quick to notice and offer support, and even though he often works late, he helps with the household chores without complaint. Thinking that at least he says I don't have to see her makes me feel slightly better, I mutter to myself while looking through travel brochures. I shake my head and decide to focus on the plan in front of me. It's the planning for our much-anticipated honeymoon. During this honeymoon, I won't have to think about his mother at all. At least, there won't be any chance of Lucas being called away by her. While considering the increase in Lucas's overtime due to his involvement in a big project, I daydream about where we could go. Maybe we should splurge a bit. As I flip through the pages, the temptation arises, but I immediately hold back.
Since I've left all the planning to you, at least let me pay for it from my account,
he said, refusing to listen to my protests that we should pay together, and just laughed. If it's just him paying, I shouldn't spend too much. Besides, I don't want to give his mother any more material for her snide remarks by appearing as a spendthrift CEO's daughter. With that thought, I let out a wry smile. Just when I decided to focus, I find myself thinking about his mother again.
Ah, stop it.
To change my mood, I put aside the brochure and start preparing dinner for Lucas, who will be home soon. And then, the morning of our honeymoon arrives. As I'm busy preparing, the doorbell rings.
Coming.
Being near the door, I open it without checking the intercom, only to be taken aback.
Mom!
There stands his mother, in flashy clothes with a large suitcase. Hearing my voice, Lucas peeks out.
You're early, Mom.
He greets her cheerfully, while she doesn't even glance at me, leaving me alternating looks between them in confusion.
Early? What do you mean?
Despite it being the day we're supposed to leave for our honeymoon, I'm puzzled by her large luggage. Is she planning to stay at our place while we're away? Confused, Lucas turns to me with a smile very much like his mother's.
Tada! Surprise! Mom's coming with us on the honeymoon. What?
Stunned, I let out a foolish noise as Lucas claps his hands in excitement. What on earth is he talking about?
Wait a minute. What do you mean?
Like I said, Mom's joining us on our honeymoon. Seeing my confusion, Lucas narrows his lips and cheerfully hugs his mother's shoulder.
If we're going on a trip, I thought it'd be nice for Mom to join us.
Watching her son express this happiness, my mother-in-law turns a smug look towards me.
No, wait a minute.
I press my temples in confusion and ask for clarification.
This is our honeymoon, right? Honeymoons are supposed to be for the couple. I could understand inviting important family members, but shouldn't we at least discuss it first?
Am I wrong? I can't be wrong, right? Yet, why are they looking at me as if my words are foreign? He made me question whether Lucas understands me at all. To make matters worse, as I struggle, my mother-in-law starts to hum a tune, clearly pleased by my discomfort. Why do we have to argue like this on what should be the joyful day of our honeymoon?
And a surprise? What kind of surprise is this on the day of the trip? What's the big deal? I paid for it, so it should be fine,
says Lucas, noticing my shock and frowning. No, it's not fine. Was his offer to pay for the trip not out of consideration for me, but to ensure I couldn't complain about his mother coming along?
Wait, you can't just spring this on me all of a sudden. It's obviously not possible,
I say, my disbelief growing. My sigh of frustration only makes Lucas and his mother more upset.
What do you mean, not possible? Oh dear, you don't want to travel with me,
she says, putting on a distressed face as if she's the victim, while Lucas adds in with a similarly troubled voice. My headache only intensifies.
It's not about wanting or not wanting. Lucas, did you book a flight for your mom? What about the hotel?
I inquire, and Lucas looks at me puzzled.
Huh? We can just book that now. That's impossible. Do you realize how many months in advance we've made our reservations?
I can't help but raise my voice at his lack of planning. Could he really have thought it would all work out, even on the day? Despite intending not to go overboard, the hotel we booked is fairly upscale. Especially now during peak travel season.
There's no way flights or hotel rooms are available,
I argue, and Lucas, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, extends his hand to me.
Then give me all your tickets. What?
I'm so taken aback I have to ask him to repeat himself, and Lucas does, more irritably.
Just give me your tickets if there's no room for Mom. It's an order from me, who's paying for the trip.
Seeing my mother-in-law's triumphant face makes everything go dark before me. What? What does he mean? What am I being told?
Since Mom went through all the trouble to prepare, I'll be going on this trip with her. We can go on another trip, just you and me, later, that's fine, right?
Lucas's reasoning, prioritizing his mother as naturally as breathing, leaves me unable to comprehend. Or does he think that going on a separate trip with me later will smooth things over? I've said it before, but this is our honeymoon. Ours, mine and Lucas's. And now, he expects me to just hand it over to his mother, who showed up out of the blue with some surprise I know nothing about. Mom went through all the trouble to prepare? I couldn't care less. If he wants to smooth things over, he should be sending his mother home, not telling his wife to give up. Yet, here Lucas is, telling me to give up, and I'm utterly dismayed.
Actually, I was going to keep quiet about this, but...
I press my aching head and let out a heavy sigh.
The trip expenses? My dad is covering them. You haven't paid, and you have no right to demand my tickets.
When I reveal this, Lucas's expression turns to one of confusion. That makes sense. He thought he had paid, which is why he felt so bold.
Why would the CEO do such a thing?
Lucas starts to sweat as I give him a cold look.
The honeymoon money was a gift from him, telling us to save it for our future.
He even said to keep quiet about it, probably to protect Lucas's pride.
Why didn't you say anything?
Lucas yells, his face turning red with the shock of the revelation. My mother-in-law, too, probably didn't expect my father to be the one paying. She starts to fidget nervously. Watching Lucas rant, I feel my affection for him cooling rapidly. I've had enough of his mother's snide remarks and his prioritizing her over everything.
If it's just the two of you going, you'll need to return the money to my dad, and I'll cancel the reservations. Go on your trip with your own money.
I shake off Lucas and his mother's frantic attempts to stop me, grab my packed bags, and leave the house. This is no joke. Using my father's money for such a mother-son affair? Over my dead body. Thanks to being tasked with all the preparations due to their busy schedules, I had made all the reservations under my name, so I start making cancellation calls while getting into the taxi I had called. Instead of heading to the planned airport, I give the driver my parents' address, and with confusion, he drives off. Arriving home with my luggage on what was supposed to be my honeymoon, my father is astoundingly surprised. But as I recount the story, his anger flares up like wildfire.
What is that? Are they joking?
The incessant calls from Lucas only fuel my father's rage. And my own too. Talking to my father solidifies my resolve.
Dad, I think I want to get a divorce.
After I made my declaration, my dad calmed his anger and gently supported me. Without saying whether it was good or bad, he soothingly rubbed my back, providing warmth.
I'm sorry, Dad.
I blurted out, tears accompanying my words. I could see Dad's other hand, not around my back, clenched tightly in response. The next day, Lucas came to my parents' house with a box of confectionery, intending to apologize. I wanted to refuse him entry, but my dad stopped me.
If we're considering divorce, a discussion is necessary. I want to hear his true intentions directly. Let him in for now.
I had thought about consulting a lawyer, but since Dad suggested otherwise, I relented. Upon opening the door, Lucas, noticing my dad, quickly apologized. Seeing Lucas act meekly in front of my dad irritated me. As Lucas continued to show his remorse, Dad prompted me to lead him to the parlor.
I deeply apologize for causing such a disturbance.
Lucas apologized again. Accustomed to apologies through work, his flawless posture was almost sickening.
What is this apology even for?
Dad sighed, seemingly for the umpteenth time. I felt the same. Lucas said he was sorry for causing a disturbance. A disturbance, that's all. Not once did he apologize for what he said to me. This is beyond insulting. Cutting off Lucas's attempt to say something else, I presented a piece of paper.
The divorce papers. Do you know how to fill them out? I've already done mine, for your reference.
I conveyed this deliberately politely, shocking Lucas, who hadn't expected divorce papers to come into play, his face turning ashen.
Wait, Grace, please! Divorce, you can't be serious!
For the first time since arriving, Lucas seemed to genuinely look at me. To him, I was always secondary.
It shouldn't matter to you, right, Lucas? You have your mother, after all.
If that's his stance, I'll treat him as a business acquaintance, speaking to him with due courtesy. I have no intention of repairing this relationship. That sentiment needed to be clearly communicated.
What are you talking about? Why bring up my mother now? She was looking forward to the trip too. We could always go on a trip, you and I, right?
Astonishing. Lucas has not grasped why I was so angry and left.
We could always go? What are you talking about? It was supposed to be our honeymoon.
My body shakes uncontrollably, and I gently press my right hand against it to steady myself. My lips, pressed tightly together, hurt.
What kind of husband tries to take his mother on a honeymoon planned by his wife?
Expressing it out loud only makes me feel more pathetic. Yet, Lucas, as if to rub salt in the wound, insists further.
But, that's why I initially tried to take her with us. You're the one who said there were no flights for Mom, or that hotels couldn't be booked, right, Grace? Think about it logically. There's no way we could book anything on the day itself.
I can't believe it. He is serious. Amidst my confusion, anger surfaces as he genuinely yells that I am the one at fault.
And you're telling me to send my mom back when she was looking forward to it so much?
Lucas's near-aggressive outburst is quietly halted by my dad.
That's enough. Stop it.
My dad, who had been silently listening, shakes his head in dismay.
Lucas, I'm disappointed in you.
Suddenly regaining his composure at those words, Lucas straightens up quickly. My dad looks at him with a sad gaze.
Why did you prioritize your mother over Grace in that situation? No, well...
Pressed by my dad, Lucas starts sweating. He might be able to argue back at me, but he can't do the same with my dad.
A honeymoon is for the couple to go on. You could have gone on any trip with your mother later. Was everything you said about cherishing my daughter a lie? It's not a lie. I just wanted to cherish my mother as well.
Lucas's spontaneous outcry is met with my dad's first glare.
So, you're fine with Grace getting hurt?
Lucas falls silent, visibly straining.
I'm so sorry.
He was mumbling an apology in a trembling voice. But his clenched fist seemed to scream of humiliation. He's apologizing because he has to. Not because he wants to. He probably doesn't think he's done anything wrong. He's just apologizing because my dad, the CEO, is angry, that's all.
Lucas, you're a capable worker.
My dad says, making Lucas feel relieved, thinking perhaps he's forgiven, but he quickly realizes his mistake. A gaze colder than a midwinter lake pierces Lucas.
But no matter how good you are at your job, I can't trust someone who doesn't value his family.
My dad hands him a pen, causing Lucas to tremble.
Wait, please. Not divorce. I'll change, I promise.
Lucas refuses to take the pen, so my dad forces it into his hand.
You shouldn't be apologizing to me.
Now Lucas starts clinging to me.
Grace, please say something. I'm begging you. Please don't divorce me.
Lucas pleads, coming to my feet and looking up at me as he clings to my legs, trying to escape from my dad's judgment.
I'll prioritize you from now on.
I'm beyond tears now. His words are laced with disrespect towards me.
Please. If we get divorced, I won't be able to pay off my debts.
Seeing that neither my dad nor I are nodding in agreement, Lucas blurts out in desperation.
Debt? What's that?
As I look down at his disheveled head, Repeating the word I've heard for the first time, Lucas jumps back in surprise. He clearly had let it slip accidentally. He covers his mouth as if he said too much.
Well, that.
My dad and I demand the whole story with just a look, and Lucas finally begins to speak, resigned.
The truth is.
The truth he hesitantly shares is enough to make both my dad and me hold our heads in our hands. It turns out Lucas and his mother had been living extravagantly, believing that the CEO position and its perks were guaranteed to fall into their lap. The reason Lucas had been going back to his mother's house every week was to squander money together.
There's even less reason to keep you married now.
My dad says with utter disdain, Lucas finally showing a genuine gesture of apology.
Please wait. If we get divorced, I don't know what I'll do tomorrow.
His repeated apologies are almost comical, like a toy I've seen somewhere before.
This has nothing to do with us.
I say with a dry gaze, waiting for Lucas to sign the divorce papers. There's nothing more to say, so my dad and I quietly sip our coffee. Of course, without offering any to Lucas. Though the divorce papers were somewhat forced, the divorce was finalized smoothly. The lawyer my dad hired was extremely competent, and with the detailed diary I kept, negotiations proceeded smoothly. We even claimed additional compensation for the honeymoon trip I had to cancel, and though there was an attempt to negotiate the amount down through the lawyers, my dad dismissed it before I could respond, making me laugh when he told me about it. As for Lucas, he quit his job almost immediately after the divorce became known at his company, leaving hastily. With no significant severance pay and only a small amount of savings, he managed to pay the alimony and debt repayment, leading to a much more modest lifestyle, I was informed by the lawyer. And his mother, now bedridden, has been living off part-time jobs, reaching out to former colleagues asking for money. While it's unclear how much of this is true, it's become a humorous story at gatherings. As for me, encouraged by my dad and other employees, it looks like I'll be taking over as the next CEO. Though I've resisted, not wanting to be at the forefront, my dad convinced me, showing a rare moment of vulnerability by not wanting to leave the company in unreliable hands. Feeling responsible for causing my father such distress, I was initially reluctant. However, it seems I might have inherited his talent for management after all. With his support as chairman, our company's performance has been on the rise, even if only slightly. Thanks to gaining some confidence, I've been getting more attention at gatherings with other CEOs. I'm not thinking about new romance just yet, but maybe it's time to take the next step forward.
Hey! Hurry up and come here. Sophia's hurt. I rushed here as fast as I could. Don't give me any excuses.
When I heard from the hospital about the car accident, I was definitely panicked. Despite leaving work early, this is no way to talk to someone.
I just asked the doctor, is it true about the paralysis?
Yeah, it's true. His paralysis was in the lower half of his body. Meaning, from now on, walking won't be possible.
You're gonna take care of me, right? Take care of you? What are you so surprised about? You're my wife, it's obvious, isn't it?
Then, seemingly more irritated than before, he started tapping on the table with his finger. This was a habit he had when he was displeased about something. When I didn't respond, he threw a water bottle that was on the table at me. It happened so suddenly, I couldn't avoid it, and it hit me in the eye. I crumbled to the floor in pain. Seeing this, my husband started hurling more insults.
What are you doing? What do you mean what? It's because you threw that at me.
Tears started to overflow from my eyes. Seeing this, he began to laugh.
You're crying over that.
The sadness turned more into anger the more he spoke. As I glared at him, my sister came into the room, limping with crutches.
Oh, you're here. And it looks like you're having fun. I came at just the right moment.
She says she won't take care of me. Help me until she says yes. Leave it to me. Despite using crutches, my sister started throwing things like water bottles and smartphones at me along with my husband. How about now? Changed your mind? The thing is, I never said I wouldn't take care of him. I didn't understand why I was being treated this way.
Hey! How long are you gonna sit there? Give me the crutches.
My husband took the crutches from my sister and started prodding me with them.
Stop! What have I done to you? If that's the case, then you're gonna take care of me for life.
Then you can take care of our kid and the dog too. I can't move yet. Watching the two of them do as they pleased, something in me snapped. I had endured various things until now, but I had reached my limit.
This is too much.
Huh?
Do you realize what you're saying? Of course, I know. The reason we're in this situation in the first place is because you two went on that trip, isn't it? You thought I didn't know?
I ignored them and left the room. Leaving them like that, I ended up facing what can only be described as hell. My name is Sophia. I work in an administrative role at a sales company. I'm the type who can't rest easy unless I thoroughly take care of all the details, and eventually, my work ethic was recognized, making me a relied-upon figure among my colleagues. I have an older sister named Mila, who I've looked up to since I could remember. To me, my sister was also someone I admired. However, at some point, she started ignoring me, perhaps finding me bothersome.
Hey sis, can you help me with my homework?
Just do it yourself.
But I don't understand it.
Then my sister would show irritation. Why don't you ask dad or mom? Of course, I tried asking my parents. But they told me to do it myself. So I turned to my sister. Unlike me, who wasn't particularly capable, my sister was not only efficient in everything she did but also had good social skills.
Sophia, you need to take a leaf out of your sister's book. Yes, you should aim to get into the same school she did. Okay.
Then my sister would come along.
But with your current grades, it might be tough, right? Then why don't you teach her?
Why?
Things like this have to be done by oneself to be meaningful.
I also applied to the same school as my sister, but failed miserably. And so, I ended up going to a fallback school. From then on, my standing at home got even worse. Branded a failure, I was treated almost like a maid.
Maid, could you take care of this too? Eh? Come on, hurry up.
While I was stuck doing household chores, my sister and the rest would go out to eat, placing me in a position that hardly felt like part of the family anymore.
I can't wait to live on my own.
Now, my goal is to leave this house as soon as possible and live independently from my family. After a tough high school experience, I left home as soon as I entered college and have been working since graduating. Getting a job felt like heaven compared to before. My colleagues were kind, and I began to be relied upon in a way I never had before. 2 years into my job, I went to a drinking party I was invited to by a friend. That's where I met my current husband, Theodore.
Is this seat taken? No, it's free.
Theodore was in the same year as my sister and was seen as a promising salesman within the company. Just the fact that he spoke to me made me feel happy.
I've heard there's a really dependable person in your department. Me? I just try not to be a burden every day. That's the same for me. For about the first year after I joined, I was practically useless. I can't imagine that at all.
I had thought he must be part of the elite, but it turned out not to be the case. I thought he might be like a brother figure, but his circumstances were actually closer to mine. I felt presumptuous even thinking about getting close to someone like him, but now I wonder if it's all right to hope a little. Our conversation got lively, and when we got onto the topic of hobbies, I was surprised to find out he likes video games and anime, which made me feel even closer to him.
Would you mind giving me your contact info? Eh? My contact info? Yeah, I was thinking I'd like to have a chat, just the two of us sometime. Is that okay? Yes, I'd love to.
I answered a bit too eagerly.
Then here.
We exchanged contact information by scanning QR codes. I was doing a victory pose in my mind. And as we went on more dates, we started dating. Spending time with Theodore made me gradually gain confidence, something I hadn't had before. I came to believe there wasn't another man who respected and understood me as much as he does. Being able to open up to him this much, feeling a comfort I never felt even with family, was a first for me. I wish we could stay together forever. I couldn't help but think that. As these feelings grew stronger day by day, Theodore proposed to me.
I want you to marry me. You're the only one for me, Sophia. I want us to be together forever. I'm so happy. Yes, I'd love to.
And so, we got engaged. During our relationship, we never had any major fights, and I believed that we could build a happy family together. Then the day came for us to visit my family home. Honestly, I didn't want to go. On the way to my family home, my steps were heavy.
It's okay. I'm here with you. Yeah.
Theodore was aware of my strained relationship with my family, as I had mentioned it during our relationship. So he was considerate of me. He held my hand tightly all the way to my family home. I could feel my tensions slowly melting away. Despite the nervousness, we opened the door to my family home.
Oh?
Isn't that Sophia? What brings you here? It was someone I honestly didn't want to see. My sister, Mila, was already married to a man named Theo, 2 years her senior. They had a child soon after getting married, but the child wasn't around today.
We're here for a marriage greeting.
Marriage? Oh, right. Congratulations. Despite her words, her attitude seemed to mock us, making me clench my hand tightly. Then, sensing that, Theodore reached out to save the situation.
Nice to meet you. I'm Theodore. You must be Sophia's sister, right? I've heard you're a very capable person from her. Oh, is that so? Thank you. And where's Aria? Oh, she's right here. See you later.
With that, Mila left the room. We then greeted my parents again.
So, Sophia is getting married too. We're all for it. After all, he's so handsome. Mom, is that what you're after? What are you talking about? Just because he's handsome doesn't mean you should make a move.
Laughing, what kind of conversation is this? It seems they approve of the marriage, but it's just the height of vulgarity. The real problem started from here. We were supposed to start preparing for the wedding, but somehow it was decided we'd discuss and decide everything at my family home. That's because my mom and Mila wanted to meet Theodore again. Honestly, I didn't want to go, but then Theodore said something surprising.
Since we're at it, why not decide everything together?
I thought he understood why I didn't want to go to my family home, so I couldn't understand why he would suggest that.
Are you sure about that, Theodore? It's our wedding. Of course, I know that. But I think, being a family, we should discuss it properly.
Why would it turn out like this? That's one of Theodore's bad habits showing. He's too serious. Surely, he meant well, but my mother and Mila don't really want to get along with me in the true sense. With such worries, we headed to my family home. Unfortunately, my father was out, leaving only my mother and Mila.
How did someone like Sophia manage to catch such a handsome man? He's several times better than my husband.
Mila immediately started causing trouble. Taking that as a cue, my mother also started being overly familiar with Theodore.
We didn't get to ask much last time since your father was here, but who have you dated before? I've dated Sophia and one other person, a classmate from high school.
Or rather, I hadn't even heard about Theodore's past relationships. Then, the conversation didn't touch on wedding plans at all, and my mother and Mila bombarded him with a barrage of questions. Looking over, wondering if he was troubled by all the questions, it seemed like Theodore was actually enjoying it.
Are you really okay with Sophia? Huh? Of course. I can be quite absent-minded, and having serious Sophia around helps me a lot.
And at some point, Mila had started calling Theodore by his first name. Then suddenly, Mila sat down next to Theodore.
Yeah, looking up close, You really do have a handsome face. Hey Sophia, want to swap husbands? What are you talking about?
It's just a joke, Sophia. You don't have to take it so seriously. How is this supposed to look like a joke? Mila, snugly positioned next to Theodore, had her arm through his and was pressing up to him with her chest emphasized by her attire, capturing Theodore's full attention.
Should we start talking about the wedding now? Yeah, that sounds good.
We then shifted the conversation to the wedding plans, but it seemed like neither my mother nor Mila cared much about that, showing displeasure on their faces. Eventually, the discussion moved forward, but it took way longer than expected due to my mother and Mila bringing up completely unrelated topics. There was even a suggestion that we stay over, but we managed to decline. On the way back home.
Those are some incredible people.
You can't seriously engage with them. That's just how they are.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind.
3 months later, our wedding ceremony was successfully held, and we officially started our married life. Theodore, already a favorite of my mother and Mila, began going out more often as they invited him.
I got invited out again today. I'll try to come back as soon as I can. Again today? When did you even exchange contact information? Oh, we exchanged numbers during the wedding planning. That was back then?
I hadn't heard about it at all, and I couldn't believe they had done this behind my back. Their demands became more intense over time, and it seemed the occasions Theodore met just with Mila were increasing.
Maybe you don't have to take up every invitation? What are you talking about? I'm doing this to help you bond with your family. That might be appreciated, but...
Do you really dislike me getting along with them that much?
It's not that. Then it's fine, right?
I understood where Theodore was coming from. It's always better to be on good terms with your spouse's family. But meeting every week is another story. If only they would invite me along sometimes, it might help, but there's no way those two would do such a thing.
Hello? Sorry, but I'll be home late. You can go to sleep first. Okay.
However, I couldn't fall asleep easily and ended up waiting for Theodore to return.
Welcome back. I told you to go to sleep.
I couldn't fall asleep. I thought he was late because of overtime, but that didn't seem to be the case. I could clearly smell alcohol on him.
Did you go drinking? Yeah, just a bit.
In my mind, the faces of my mother and Mila appeared. Were you drinking with Mila and them again?
I don't meet them that often. Today was with colleagues.
You could have just said that from the beginning. From that point on, my wariness was at its peak. Even when he said he was going out with colleagues or for fun, I couldn't help but wonder if it was actually with Mila and them. My unease gradually turned into irritation and anger. There were times I thought about following Theodore on his outings on weekends. But then, it became our busy season at work, and my mind was filled with nothing but work. Theodore, seemingly unconcerned about how I felt, would sometimes go to family gatherings alone, without even telling me. During this time, someone else started to question the situation as well. My father. I found out about this while Theodore was out drinking with Mila and the others as usual.
Are you at home right now?
Yes, but... Do you know where your mother has gone? I realized my mother hadn't told my father where she was going. Thinking there was no need to hide it, I told my father the truth.
Is that true? It is. Mila is probably with them too.
Don't you think anything of this?
How can I not? But no matter how much I say, they won't listen to me.
There was a moment of silence from my father. Then, surprisingly, he apologized. Sorry. I had no idea things had gotten this bad.
Apologies now only make things more complicated. If so, you should talk to Mom more firmly. I understand.
I never thought I'd speak so assertively to my father. Even he seemed taken aback by my forcefulness, left speechless. Having said all that, I hoped my father would do something about it. As a result, it seemed my mother stopped meeting with Theodore. I didn't know the specifics of what was done, but for now, the issue with my mother was resolved. That left my sister. I want to contact Theo, but I don't even know his number. Maybe Dad knows? After that, I reached out to my father. At this point, I had to act. I had plans to stop by my parents' house, so I thought I'd ask my father then.
Good to see you. I needed something for work. Well, I also had something else I wanted to ask. What did you want to ask? Do you have Theo's contact information? I do, but could you give it to me? What are you planning?
Obviously, it's about Mila. We can't let this continue. Are they still meeting? Seems like it. That's how I got Theo's contact information.
I'll be heading back then. Is there anything I can do? Yeah, for now, just keep an eye on Mom. Got it. Don't push yourself too hard, okay? I'll handle it.
I reached out to Theo and explained the current situation. However, since Theo was on a business trip alone, we agreed that I would keep him updated about Mila's situation. Simultaneously, Theodore's behavior towards me began to change drastically. He became noticeably harsher in his interactions with me. As Theodore, a salesman, saw an uptick in company performance, his business trips and time away from home increased. Though I understood the necessity, one day upon his return from a trip brought a new low. "Get this dry cleaned," he said, tossing his shirts and suits at me carelessly.
I have another trip the day after tomorrow, so make sure it's done by then.
Another trip?
Huh?
That single word was enough to irritate Theodore.
Unlike you, I'm constantly on the move, which is exhausting. You just sit all day, right? Must be nice. Nice? That's not true at all. We also work hard creating documents for salespeople like you. Getting cocky over a job anyone can do isn't great,
he said mockingly, with a derisive laugh. He had never spoken to me like that before. In fact, he used to be grateful for the work I did. I wondered if this really was the Theodore I knew.
Since you're just lazing around at home, you might as well do the housework perfectly, right? But who said you could talk back? Just get to the dry cleaning, will you? Unlike some people, you're truly useless.
I couldn't help but retort.
Are you referring to your sister with some people?
The moment I mentioned his sister, I felt a shock on my back. I was picking up the thrown clothes when his throw made me hit my face on the floor.
Mila has nothing to do with this.
How is she not involved when a husband casually refers to his sister-in-law by her first name? Fortunately, I wasn't seriously injured, but my anger towards Theodore only grew. Then, the inevitable X-day arrived. Theodore continued to find fault with everything I did. Where he once helped, he now watched me like a hawk, ensuring I was doing all the housework correctly. If anything was slightly off, he wouldn't hesitate to throw whatever was nearby at me.
Stop throwing things. If you did things right, I wouldn't have to throw anything. It's your fault.
I am doing it right. Any sign of defiance from me would earn a piercing glare and an exaggerated sigh from him. Actually, when you look closely, you're pretty ugly. I froze, cleaning in hand. I instinctively looked at Theodore.
Don't look at me, just get back to work.
He continued to berate me.
You really lack charm, don't you? Mila is so beautiful, and to think you're sisters. I can hardly believe it. Why don't you try to learn a bit from her? Even a plain Jane like you could improve to at least average, couldn't she?
I told myself not to react, as if casting a spell of self-persuasion. While I repeated that mantra in my head, my phone rang.
Right now? Understood. Then, the usual place.
I didn't need to ask who was on the phone to guess. It was probably Mila.
I'm stepping out for a bit. Make sure everything is finished by the time I get back.
Theodore left. After ensuring he wasn't coming back, I took a moment to breathe. Sitting on the sofa, I gazed up at the ceiling. Somehow, today it seemed higher than usual. I couldn't help but wonder why I was putting myself through this. I bit my lip to hold back tears that threatened to spill. While finishing the remaining chores, I pondered my future. Should I continue to be with Theodore? I wanted to be happy, that's why I married him. I didn't wish for this outcome. Are you done? Theodore's voice brought me back to reality. Checking the clock, I realized it had been almost 3 hours since Theodore left. It was nearly midnight. I'm going to bed.
Don't you dare sleep until you're done with everything.
I didn't respond.
Seriously, you can't even respond?
Muttering complaints, Theodore went to sleep. It was another hour before I finished all the chores. I quietly opened the bedroom door to peek inside and saw him snoring peacefully, seemingly content. Then, something caught my eye. It was Theodore's shoulder bag, which he always took with him when he went out. Before I knew it, my hand was reaching for it. Inside were his wallet and other items. At the bottom, I found a crumpled piece of paper. Hesitantly, I unfolded it to discover several hotel receipts. Thinking that keeping them would reveal my snooping, I took photos of everything and put them back exactly as they were. There's no escaping this now. The real question was who he was going with. There were 2 suspects, my mother and Mila. But my father was keeping an eye on my mother. She couldn't possibly sneak out at such an hour. That left Mila as the prime suspect. By this point, my affection for Theodore had significantly faded. All that was left was to gather undeniable evidence. Theodore's phone was lying by his pillow. If it's come to this, I'm going all out. I reached for the phone. Just then, Theodore, who should have been sound asleep, woke up.
What are you doing?
My heart felt like it was about to explode.
I've finished what I needed to do, thought I might go to sleep. Then go to sleep already. Got it.
After making sure he was asleep again, I started messing with the phone. It was locked with a 4-digit code, but I tried a certain number and it opened. First, I checked the call history from earlier. As expected, it was Mila. I also checked the photo folder and the messaging app. There, I found dozens of photos of Theodore with Mila and my mother. I felt nauseous but managed to take pictures of them while suppressing my urge to vomit. I left the room and headed straight to the kitchen sink, taking deep breaths to calm myself. Drinking a glass of water, I realized I had completely chosen the wrong partner to marry.
Hey! What are you spacing out for? I have a business trip for the next 2 nights. The preparations are ready. You're catching on, aren't you? I get things done when I need to.
Humph. Indeed, the messaging app contained plans for an affair trip with Mila. It seemed he was thoroughly ensnared by Mila's manipulation.
Well, setting your password as your sister's birthday.
The next morning, Theodore casually lied about going on a business trip and left. As usual, I went to work and immediately headed for Theodore's department. I was there to speak with his direct supervisor, the department head, who was familiar with me.
Good morning. What brings you here today? I don't recall any tasks you had for us.
It's not about work today.
Oh?
Theodore said he was going on a business trip.
A business trip? No, that's not right. He said he was taking leave for a family emergency starting today.
Is that so? Sorry, that's all I wanted to know.
You should have heard that from him, right?
Not exactly. Would you like to know what's actually happening? I explained to the department head what Theodore was really up to today. Although he was furious about the lie, I made him promise not to tell Theodore that we had spoken. The real confrontation would happen when Theodore returned. In the meantime, I did everything I could, including finding a skilled lawyer and discussing my situation in advance. All that was left to do was wait. However, something unexpected happened that evening. A call from an unknown number came in, and it was from the hospital.
My husband?
I was told that Theodore had been involved in a traffic accident and was taken to the hospital. I explained the situation to my company and left early for the hospital. Upon being guided to the room by a nurse.
Hey, hurry up and come here. I am injured. I came as fast as I could. Don't make excuses.
I was genuinely panicked when I heard about the traffic accident. This wasn't about concern or anything like that. If he had died, my plans for revenge would be unfulfilled.
I just asked the doctor, is the paralysis true?
Yeah, it's true. Theodore's paralysis was in his lower body. Meaning, he wouldn't be able to walk from now on.
You're gonna take care of me, right? Take care of you? What are you so surprised about? You're my wife, it's obvious, isn't it?
Then, seemingly more irritated than before, he started tapping on the table with his finger. This was a habit he had when he was displeased about something. When I didn't respond, he threw a water bottle that was on the table at me. It happened so suddenly, I couldn't avoid it, and it hit me in the eye. I crumbled to the floor in pain. Seeing this, Theodore started hurling more insults.
What are you doing? What do you mean what? It's because you threw that at me.
Tears started to overflow from my eyes. Seeing this, my husband began to laugh.
You're crying over that.
The sadness turned more into anger the more he spoke. As I glared at Theodore, Mila came into the room, limping with crutches.
Oh, you're here. And it looks like you're having fun. I came at just the right moment. Since she says she won't take care of you, yes, until she agrees to help.
Leave it to me. Mila, despite using crutches, started throwing things like water bottles and smartphones at me along with Theodore.
How about now? Changed your mind?
The thing is, I never said I wouldn't take care of him. I didn't understand why I was being treated this way.
Hey! How long are you gonna sit there? Give me the crutches.
Theodore took the crutches from Mila and started prodding me with them.
Stop! What have I done to you? If that's the case, then you're gonna take care of me for life. Then take care of our kid and the dog too.
I can't move yet. Watching the two of them say whatever they wanted, something in me snapped. I had endured various things until now, but I had reached my limit.
This is too much. Huh? Do you realize what you're saying? Of course I do. This all started because you two went on that trip, didn't it? You thought I didn't know? I'll make you regret this.
I ignored them and left the hospital room. Then, I saw Theo running towards me.
Theo, you're back? I was planning to come back today. Did you see what I sent you? I saw it. Is Mila in this room?
Yes. You have red eyes. This is because Theodore threw a water bottle at me. Mila did too. Theo sighed deeply. Then, Mila tried to push her kids onto me as well. I could see Theo's fists clenching.
That's why I decided to leave them be.
Leave them?
What do you mean? They'll be in the hospital for a while longer. So, I'll use this time to get my revenge on them. I see. Then, let me help you with that. Of course. It would be reassuring to have you, Theo. And I've already set things in motion.
We left the hospital immediately. After reporting back to the company, it seemed a meeting was called. Theo and I together consulted a lawyer for divorce and alimony proceedings. Then, we reported to our parents.
I can't believe you've gone this far. Now you see? I believe Mom is also responsible. Me? You were enjoying yourself with Mila, right? Didn't you wonder why Dad suddenly became strict? I've been consulting Sophia about how odd it was. So, I thought Mom should also face some consequences. What are you planning to make me do? First, you must not contact them at all. Visiting them is also off limits. That's light, isn't it? Is there more?
I have one more move up my sleeve. I want Dad to see this. I showed him a particular photo. Upon seeing it, Dad looked furious, as if he was about to strike Mom.
Don't think you can get away with this. What are you talking about? This.
The photo I showed him included Theodore kissing and being intimate with someone. So, Theodore was also involved with my mother. Seeing those pictures made me feel sick again.
Get out! Huh? Leave this house now. Don't you ever come back, you homewrecker. How could you? I won't say it twice.
Then, my mother left the house, looking like she was about to cry.
I can't believe it's come to this. I really had no idea, I mused.
I feel the same. And it's not over yet. I exchanged a look with Theo, signaling him.
We're going to make a greeting visit now. Want to come? To the hospital?
Yeah. And so, the three of us headed to the hospital. As soon as we opened the door to Theodore's hospital room, he lashed out at me.
You've ignored me all this time. What have you been up to?
Mila was also sitting there by the bed.
Good timing. We came here today because we have something important to discuss. Of course, this includes you, Mila. Finally decided to take care of me? Come in.
Then, my father and Theo, who had been waiting outside, entered.
Theo? Why are you here? I just got back from a business trip. Forgot about that, did you? And Dad too? By the way, Mom's been kicked out of the house. Why would that happen? Obviously, because she was involved with Theodore. Huh? What do you mean? No, it's... This is what I mean.
I threw printed photos at them.
I told you I knew everything. Oh, and by the way, Theo and I are planning to divorce. Right now, a lawyer is handling it. Including the alimony.
Both were speechless.
And I've informed the company about this, so you might be getting fired right about now. What?
It's obvious, given you lied to the company too.
You're going that far? The betrayal was on your part. When I decide to do something, I go all out. Didn't you know? If not, you're just stupid. So, what's going to happen now? That's for you to figure out.
You're adults, after all.
It's all your own doing. Dad, do you have anything to say? Nothing. I don't know these people. Just make sure you two get along.
Especially you, Theodore.
It's going to be tough, but you have Mila, right?
We left the hospital room. All three of us looked more relieved than when we arrived.
This time we owe it to Sophia. It's not over yet, though. I just played a part in it. I'm really grateful, you know. What about Uriah and the dog? I'll take them with me. I can't trust her with them.
A week later, the divorce was finalized, and the alimony was paid. I immediately moved out my belongings and returned to my parents' home.
I'll be in your care from now on. Take it easy. We've caused you enough trouble. Do as you please. Thank you.
About a month later, those three showed up at my parents' house.
I was expecting you to come.
Theodore was wheeled in by Mila.
There's nothing to talk about. And why is Mom here? Did you forget about me? This is... Well, it's fine. You'd only be in the way here anyway. Wait. Please listen. I can't just do as I please in this condition.
And?
We can't go on living like this.
Mila interjected. Annoyed, I completely lost the desire to talk.
Too bad, but my sister interrupted, so sorry. Wait, please. I'm begging you. Didn't you hear? You're useless now. So just disappear.
I went inside the house. They lingered outside for a while but eventually gave up and left. Later, I heard about their situation. As expected, Theodore was fired, and Mila, who hadn't worked before, was complaining while working from morning till night. But Mila and my mother were not getting along well, constantly at odds. Well, they were fighting over one man. It's true what they say about blood not lying. Theodore's situation spread at work, and I left the company. However, I'm not despairing. Now, I'm living at my parents' house, doing illustration work, something I've always been interested in. From now on, I want to live life on my terms.